Oh, so, all right. Okay, good evening, everybody. We're gonna get started. I think some more members are gonna filter in as we go. Good evening and welcome to CEC 15's March calendar meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. I'm CEC 15 President Antonia Ferraro Martinelli, and I'll be calling this meeting to order at 6:37. We are coming to you from PSMS 676. And I will ask everyone who is attending in person tonight to please sign the attendance sheet. And everyone who is attending virtually to please sign the attendance sheet that is linked in the chat. So before we begin, I'm going to turn it over to the interpreters to please introduce themselves. Let's begin with Mandarin.
请在线上的家长如果需要中文普通话翻译，请拨打347-966-4114，之后请打 ID 号码879-293-991井号键。我再重复一次，347-966-4114 ，ID 号码879-293-991井号键。Thank you. Mandarin announcement is complete.
All right, and Spanish?
Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. Por favor, si este anuncio es en español, por favor, si desean escuchar la conferencia en español, el número telefónico a marcar desde sus celulares es el número 347-966-4114 y el código de la conferencia a marcar es el número 478-755-471 seguido de la tecla numeral. Solamente se les pide, por favor, que mantengan los micrófonos de sus dispositivos apagados para evitar interferencia de sonido. Repito la información. El número a marcar desde sus celulares es el 347-966-4114 seguido del código de conferencia 478-755-471 seguido de la tecla numeral. La información está en el chat también para su conveniencia. Gracias.
Okay, and Bangla, please.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম বাংলা ইন্টারপ্রেশনের জন্য ফোন করতে হবে 347-966-4114 347-966-4114 কোড নাম্বার হচ্ছে যে 6768-850-178 তারপর হ্যাশ চাপবেন ঠিক আছে ওকে বাংলাদেশ ডান
Okay, and I'm gonna turn it over to our Vice President, Leslie, to call the roll.
Okay, Leslie here. Vanessa is running late, Nancy Cruz is running late, Katina Rogers. Jonathan Davis is running late, Consariata running late.
I think he has an excused absence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Donalda Chumney has an excused absence. Nancy Randall has an excused absence. Ganley Vidal is no longer with us.
Ganley Vidal resigned 2 weeks ago.
And Kwame Eckerton is running late.
Okay, so we do not have quorum. Maybe quorum will happen later. Let's see what happens. So you want to read the welcome? Keep going.
Thank you for coming to the District 15 Community Education Council tonight. We appreciate your time and we're glad that you could join us. For those of you who are new to CEC meetings, there are 32 CECs throughout the city, plus 4 citywide councils. Each CEC represents a community of school districts, and each is made up of 12 volunteer members, 10 of whom are elected by parents in the district, and the remaining members are appointed by the Brooklyn Borough President and 2 high school student members. CEC 15 is a state mandated public body responsible for ensuring that public school parents and the public have input in education decisions that are made at the school district level. Our council reviews education policies and advocates for high quality education that benefit all of our District 15 public elementary and middle school students. CEC 15 serves 38 elementary and middle schools, 3 pre-K sites, and 1 high school under the oversight of our superintendent. CEC members serve in an advisory role on education matters to the district superintendent, the chancellor of the Department of Education, and to the state and city elected officials. We approve district school zoning lines submitted by the Department of Education. We evaluate our district superintendent. We review the district's educational programs, and we support school leadership teams. We also submit recommendations for the School Construction Authority's annual capital plan. And as of recent amendments to the law, CECs advise in the selection of parent coordinators. We actively seek input and feedback from the public and encourage you to visit our website, cecd15.org, and write to us about any issues you may want to address or learn about. Each school has a CEC liaison. All of our names and contact information are available on our website.
Great, thank you. Tina, I don't suppose you have access to the protocols for public hearings?
I don't.
Okay, all right. All right, tonight's calendar meeting is in person and it will include a public comment period. We will take both remote and in-person comments to gather additional feedback from our families and school community members. You may leave your camera on, or for your own privacy, if you prefer, you may use audio only during the comment period and throughout the meeting. Rules of engagement: when you comment, please comment on the topic, respect the privacy of others, and please do not include the names of children or staff. Guests who make inappropriate comments will be removed from the meeting. During the public comment period, those attending virtually may raise their hand to comment or to indicate in the chat that they would like to speak. Those called upon will be unmuted. If you're attending in person, you must sign the sign-in sheet to indicate whether you would like to comment. Speakers will be called on one at a time and will be allowed 1 minute for each comment. We will hear as many speakers as time allows. It's possible that not every comment or question will be given time, so the best way to get your questions answered is always to write to the CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. CEC members will also be given a comment period. Members will be called upon and are each permitted 1 2-minute comment or question. If members do not have a comment, they may cede their time to the chair. All right, so first up on our agenda, we were going to give time to Brooklyn North High Schools because they were not included at our last meeting for various complicated reasons. We got kicked out of the building and because our permit, there was some confusion about the timing of our permit, and so UET was not able to give her presentation. I hear Jonathan. You hear Jonathan? I don't know if that's UET. It's UET? UET, you're on. UET. You made it just in time. Yeah, come on in, sit down, have a seat.
Hi, UET Brooklyn North High Schools. I've learned today there is no easy way to get to Red Hook from Bushwick. Even though like it's Brooklyn, right? Like it's the same borough.
Big borough.
It is a big borough.
I know, and I refused. Google Maps said to go into Manhattan and then come in. I was like, I'm not doing that. To go to Brooklyn from Brooklyn. So you girls gotta have principles, right? Like I'm not going to Manhattan to go to Brooklyn.
Well, that's just wrong. Everything about that was wrong.
What a super cool, beautiful neighborhood. And I have to say, I was around when the Harbor School was born, and it feels really great to be here in this building and challenge me and like all my old friends. So thank you for hosting us. Thank you, Deirdre. Deirdre was gonna come rescue me. Which I have to say, the first time that happened was one of our network leader friends who's passed now, rest his soul. First time I went to the Bronx, same thing. I'm following this bridge and all of a sudden I was not where I thought I was. And a friend, a DOE friend said, can I come pick you up? And Deirdre just did the same thing. So you just brought back all my feelings. Shanice, you got me?
Yeah, I got you. This is how I have it. It's not.
Oh,
It's not.
presented, that's okay. So thank you, Antonia, for letting me go first. And of course,
I'm so sorry
it's
about
Murphy's
last.
Law, right? Like, I always, Murphy's Law. So March is, we're at the end of March, so we've been celebrating Women's History Month. And for our friends who observe Ramadan, very excited for Eid that's coming up on Sunday. But glad to be here with you all tonight. Oh, you're not
Sorry.
just messing with me.
I was trying.
You can go to the next slide. So for folks who we haven't spoken with, Brooklyn North High Schools comprises 7 districts and a really ginormous swath of Brooklyn. We are from Dumbo all the way. One of our schools, if you cross the street, you're in Queens. I learned that too. Bridgewood is very close to Bushwick. We have 47 schools, a little over 26,000 kids. We're about 80% Black and Latinx, and we're about 80% economically disadvantaged across our schools. Next slide, please. And then our district mission and vision, just like a lot of words to really say, as a high school district, we try to grow young adults who will exit high school with a pathway to economic freedom. For most kids, it's college. For some kids, it's career. Our schools strive to provide all sorts of opportunities. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Next slide, please. So this month, I'm going to provide, it's more dense than usual. We've been providing all of our CECs with our mid-year updates of our DCEP goals. So this is going to be a little data heavy. Next slide, please, Chief. Every month, we love the DOE messaging app. So Janice writes a love letter. And for March, in addition to celebrating Women's History Month and Ramadan, she reminded families that, like, for high school kids, the testing season comes up really quickly. AP exams are in early May. And habits take a while to become habits. So just some tips for our students to try to get into some discipline so that spring doesn't creep up on them. Next slide, please. So DCEP, our priority 1, I think we had shared this with you guys earlier in the year, so I'm just gonna hone in on our goals and where we are right now. As a high school district, we tag ourselves to the ELA regions for priority 1, which is all students learn to read well. And we had set a goal that our average score for all students will increase by 5 points to 66.5. And then we also set targets for our students with disabilities and multilingual learners. Next slide, please. So where are we now? We actually are almost there. In our January regions, all students we're very close to our goal. We are paying a lot of attention to our students with disabilities and multilingual learners because those metrics are not where we want them to be. So on the next slide, in the interest of transparency, we wanted to share kind of the work that we are doing to support all of our schools. Just like Superintendent Alvarez, we're using interim assessments, we're supporting schools to look at data. And then our instructional team tasks themselves with making sure schools have access to all of the resources they need, so that as the data suggests different strategies for students, teachers have at their fingertips the instructional resources, access to all the professional development we've been doing. Just to try to make it a little easier for teachers to meet the needs of students. Next slide, please.
Shanice, I think you have to share your screen because I think the people in the attending digitally are not seeing the slide.
It's not sharing?
No.
I can see it.
You can see it?
It is sharing on mine.
Oh, maybe, I don't know why I'm not seeing.
Okay, sorry, never mind. So priority 2 is about culture and climate. For us, a continuation of our goal from last year, we're working on continually reducing higher level incidents as well as suspensions. Next slide, please. So we're not quite there yet. There was a spike both in incidents and suspensions in the early fall. We've been working really hard with our schools to look at the conditions that were leading to those behaviors with students and reinforcing positive behaviors and looking at what types of interventions we can put in place. For incidents, we're trending pretty close to where we were last year, a little higher, so we're working on, actually, from Friday, we're meeting with schools. Our team is in schools all the time, but on Friday, we're kind of bringing them together to do an assessment of like, where are we now with a couple of weeks before spring break? And paying attention to patterns, like where are incidents happening, when are they happening? There are similarities across schools, like right before lunch in the hallway. So then what is it that schools are doing when you can predict that these things are going to happen? And then for students and families that need additional resources, we're partnering, we actually just opened a school-based mental health clinic in Bushwick. We're partnering with Woodhull Hospital, trying to bring resources that are kind of beyond the clinical capabilities of our staff. And then for suspensions, again, we're not where we want to be, but we are confident because we're seeing that the superintendent suspensions that we're seeing are increasing less. So that's kind of like where we have our sphere of influence, how we think about what triggers something severe like a superintendent suspension. And then of course, wrapped around all of this is like the idea of the pedagogy of critical love and giving kids a reason to come to school. And then when they come to school, give them a reason to be in classrooms and not in the hallway or out the back stairs. And that all ties back to the instructional goals of pedagogy that's meaningful to children. Next slide, please. And with that, priority 3 is our math goal, because we were a phase 1 district for illustrative math. In the first year, we had 40 schools implement the curriculum, and this year we have 45 of our 47. We were really proud that we met our goal last year, tagged to the Algebra 1 region, so we're confident we'll do so again. Next slide, please. The January region's results were not there yet, but this was not a surprise. For Algebra 1, we really use this as almost as a diagnostic, just to test the hunches about what is it that students need. Most of these students will take this exam in June. And then in between now and then, we're engaging our teeny tiny team of 2 math experts for 47 schools across 7 districts are visiting each school. They're doing implementation visits, just to make sure what all of the resources that New York City Public Schools has invested in illustrative math, both in curriculum and training and supports from consultants and our team, that it's really landing on students. So we are using both the data from the unit assessments from illustrative math and also the math growth interim assessments, and trying to triangulate all of that information to support students with what they need. Next slide, please. And then again, just lots and lots of resources. It's really hard to implement a new curriculum. It's super hard to do it across 40 schools and now 47 schools. We want to be coherent. And one way we're doing that is by providing resources for teachers so that when you walk into an illustrative math classroom here in District 15 or over in District 32 or under the Brooklyn Bridge in District 13, students are experiencing the same anchor charts and they have access to the same glossaries. And then we bring our teachers together at the before each unit to plan together. Again, trying to create consistency and coherence across the district. Next slide, please. And then I think of this as our bread and butter goal, college and career readiness for a high school district. This is where we hold ourselves to intense scrutiny. So we set 4 goals for this priority tied to career connected learning, tied to advanced courses, advisement, and then taking advantage of opportunities the state is offering, like the Seal of Literacy. Next slide, please. So for career connected learning, we are all about Future Ready NYC and Career Ready Modern Youth Apprenticeship. When Chancellor Banks announced these initiatives, we were all in. And we continue to expand. So we currently have schools in both initiatives, and we have 21 additional schools that have applied for Future Ready. So we feel super confident that we're going to meet our goal of having at least 10% of students across Brooklyn North High Schools engaging in career connected learning. The schools in the yellow on the bottom are part of the Modern Youth Apprenticeship Program. This was a parallel pilot to Future Ready, a much smaller pilot, because these schools, we started with their 9th graders last year, and CASA is one of them. CASA is yours over on the John Jay campus. Next year, the 11th grade class, the promise is that, so for 2 years, they've engaged in classroom coursework, they've been engaging with industry partners, kind of learning to be work ready. And the goal, hopefully they'll come through, is next year, each of these schools will be partnered with an industry organization where the students, the 11th graders will spend, the original model was 3 days a week at school in their academic program, and 2 days a week at a work site in a paid internship, at least minimum wage. So we've invested the last 2 years. We're very excited to see where this heads in the coming year for our juniors, because that was the class that Chancellor Banks was thinking about. Like, these are the kids, they're starting with us, we're going to see them through. And that every 11th grader will have an opportunity to have had a paid job before they graduate. Next slide, please. So for advisement, just a lot of numbers. We are committed to one-to-one advisement. This is an initiative that the Office of Pathways started. That by the end of the year, we'll have met with 60% of our students. And my brain is tired, but 60% of 26,000 is a lot of students. For grades 9 through 11, the school counselors are meeting. The state requires that the high school counselors meet with students to start talking about college plans for this, and they have 4 years to do it. So anywhere between 9th grade and senior year, that conversation can start. But in 12th grade, we expect every student to have had at least one one-on-one college advisement conversation. So this is just a lot of different ways that we're tracking to ensure that our students have this opportunity. And then, of course, kind of the back office is training our college advisors to have these conversations and providing them the tools to be able to support their students. And the Office of Pathways is awesome. If they haven't come to present to CEC, I would strongly recommend it. They are just like, they will blow your mind with how they think about this and the research that they use to create these priorities. Next slide, please. And then advanced courses. Brooklyn North High Schools has always, we are the darling of the College Board. They love us because advanced placement is something that Janice has championed in the years that she's been superintendent and even before that. We set a goal of having 70% of our students engaged in at least one advanced placement course. And this could be AP with the College Board, this could be college credit courses, this could be dual enrollment. We have some schools that offer all three. And as of today, we actually have 74% of our students engaged in at least one advanced course, and most are engaged in multiple. There is a lot of research that shows that exposure to college level work, however you do it, that students that have been exposed at least to one course have a much higher probability of completing college on time. The numbers on top, so this is I'm gonna come back and have this conversation. So the city is redefining what college and career readiness means, that it's beyond Regent scores. So there's a whole lot of algorithms and metrics that we would be happy to talk with you about. And if anybody's an actuary in the audience, the research is really about trying to project the probability of 6-year college completion based on a combination of grade point average for coursework, which is new. That's not something that had been counted before by the state or the city. Different ways of looking at attendance, advanced coursework, and then credits for things like the Seal of Arts, CTE, and biliteracy, which I think is next. Next slide, please. So three years ago, I think was when New York State formed the Blue Ribbon Commission to look at what graduation requirements could be beyond Regent scores. And Betty Rosa, who has a big, giant heart and commitment to multilingual learners, one of her first challenges was, how can we recognize students whose home language is not English for accomplishments in their home language? So the state created this portfolio system where a student can earn a seal of biliteracy on their diploma. And last year we had 14 schools participate. We had about 400 students who earned this seal. And it's Gary District 15 because it's all project-based. Students are working in their home language to demonstrate proficiency in literacy, in writing, and the projects are amazing because it's near and dear to me as an ever-L, and our kids love it. So we set a goal of having 18 schools participate, and I believe as of yesterday, we have 20 schools that will be offering this for our students. And I think as the landscape continues to change and we serve more and more newly arrived families, this is a really powerful thing. And grateful to the state for allowing it. This year, they're piloting a Seal of Arts. So very similar, again, near and dear to District 15 with your district shows and your showcases. Students will have an opportunity to earn a Seal of Arts, again, through a portfolio presentation, which our art schools are really excited about because students who graduate and want to pursue post-secondary arts education have to create a portfolio anyways, right? It's kind of old school, I was just at BCAM in District 13 and the kids were saying how, I was like, why don't we do a digital portfolio? Why don't you just put it all on a thumb drive? And they're like, Miss, the schools won't take it. They want to see our technique and they want to touch the things we've created. So the Seal of Arts is coming up, but we're really proud of this. Next slide, please. And then chronic absenteeism, similar to last year, we're trying really hard to stick to 90% attendance and keeping our chronic absenteeism around 30%, which is the city's goal. Next slide, please. We're right there. We're kind of like clinging, just a smidge above where we were at the end of last year in both metrics. Our one-man attendance team and his army of amazing attendance teachers are really honing in on those schools in red, that are schools that are still below 80% in year-to-date attendance. They're in schools every day. And going to the kid level, right? Trying to figure out what are the barriers to get Raphael to school. And if he can't be here all day, what can we entice him with that he can come in for a couple of periods? Because it really takes that. It takes, you know, in Brooklyn, like with all of this data, we always like to say that when we say data, we mean children. And certainly for attendance, and I know all the parents feel it. It comes down to connecting with every kid and understanding their unique situations. Next slide, please. And then our meeting the moment goal around safe and inclusive spaces. We won't know until the surveys come back. Do your surveys, deadlines April 4th, I think. There's a lot of green going around our schools, really lamenting not having in-person parent-teacher conferences, because those are great to get the surveys in, so do your survey. But in the meantime, we're supporting our parent coordinators. We have monthly meetings with them where we're looking at not just the data of like how many events they had and how many parents came, but what are they doing? Are they providing language access? Are they surveying parents to see what they need and want? And then what can we meet at the school level? What can we meet at the district level? And then we love our friends in Brooklyn South, so we've done some combined workshops with them. Technology has been amazing, so parents can engage however they want. And then the other piece of this for us is continuing to work on modernizing classrooms. And again, it comes down to like create an environment where kids want to come to school. And CASA is a perfect example. If you haven't visited, in her 2.5, almost 3 years, Valerie's completely transformed the space where it feels like Cyber Art Studio Academy. And that's work that we're continuing to support, and grateful to our elected officials. We love our resume grants. Next slide, please. And then just all the different ways we're connecting with parents. Shout out to our Brooklyn High School President's Council. Tamara and Randy and Josephine and Marsha, I love them to death. I actually was just with them because we have a citywide high school meeting every month, and it's always right before the CEC. And I don't think they're joining tonight because we have our candidate forum tomorrow night. So they're preparing for that, and we have President's Council Thursday. So the ladies are busily preparing, but we love them. They did parent leaders training for us. We're partnering. We're going to provide a financial literacy workshop for families across both Brooklyn North and Brooklyn South. And we're working with Morningside Center to arrange for some kind of social emotional workshops for parents. One around understanding the adolescent brain, which takes more than one workshop, but these guys are really good at it. And then we're looking at a second workshop that's kind of about care for the caregiver. So it will be a workshop for parents for them, not for anyone else. And again, Brooklyn High School President's Council is helping us organizing that. Next slide, please. And then just some resources. I think I shared the open arms with you guys last at DLT. I added the mayor's Know Your Rights booklet because a lot of families in our community have been asking, like, what can I print out and keep with me? And you know, DOE needs everything vetted by everyone, but this is from the mayor's office. So it doesn't need to be vetted. You can click on the link and print it. It comes in all of the city's languages. And then at the bottom, I shared previously, just links to some amazing humans in Brooklyn who have been doing this work for generations, providing free legal services. These are all live links, so when you get the deck, you can play with it. Next slide, please. Then our second annual college fair is coming up next Friday. We'll be at Boys and Girls High School. Last year we had about 1,300 students attend. Right now, I think our registration's at 1,800. All of the SUNY organizations are coming. They really bring everything to us. So if you want to stop by, you're welcome. I will be there all day. Next slide, please. And then this is for you. I sent it to Deirdre and hopefully to get it out to your middle schools. This is next Saturday. Last year we had an amazing science expo. This year we're opening it up to the community as a recruitment event. So every year we do a fall recruitment event and then we do a spring science expo. And this year we're putting it together. So come by, no registration necessary. You can check out the amazing projects our kids are doing and your kids can play. There's going to be a robotics station. There's a battle bots, something or another. There's a drone station, which I've been told they have to stay inside because apparently there's some law about flying drones on Metro Tech Plaza. Who knew? But please come. Please help us spread the word because it should be a really fun day. And you can learn things like can't fly drones on Metro Tech Plaza. Next slide, please. And then just for folks who have college going kids, this is an amazing scholarship opportunity. You can read it when you have time, but Debbie Robles is an incredible human being and this is her legacy. Next slide, please. And then just some fun things going on in schools in District 15. It now feels old because I put this together in the middle of the month, but there's a lot of like Black History celebrations. It's trying to pretend it's spring, hopefully it sticks. We're getting our kids out on college trips and just out and about in the world. And the smiles are everything. Next slide, please. Then Casa, Day of Love, and then at Millennium, for Black History Month, their students organized a culture day, which was a beautiful event. Next slide, please. And then always just sharing data. The only thing that really changes is attendance. We are actually really proud that attendance is moving. Right now, we're doing a lot of work with Cobble and Sunset because we want them to get to at least 85. But otherwise, our schools are moving. And then all the different ways to stay in touch with us. Thank you so much for your time and for geeking out with me over our data. You want to?
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
We have wonderful people in the audience today, so I think maybe we'll start in person today and then we'll move to Zoom.
Sure.
That's okay.
Sure.
Anybody here in person that has a question or comment for UF? Yeah, Robbie.
Robert Patrick, you said you have a small but mighty team of 2 to observe the implementation of the illustrative math curriculum. What's the timeline for them to like, how much time do they get to observe per class or per school? And when will they have a chance to actually make it all the way around the one?
So small but mighty team, and thank goodness a lot of our schools are on campuses. So when they go to John Jay, they can see 4 schools in one day. So IM is just in our algebra classroom, so they're not visiting all the math classes. They started, I believe we started in early February, and the goal is to be done by April break. A lot of our schools are running academies over the break, so part of the work is to give information back to schools to inform that. They were an incredible team with a car.
And just for clarity, so it sounds like they observe one class per school, so
Yeah.
an exemplary example, not the same subject being implemented across 2 classes or 2 subjects.
Yeah, they usually will see one classroom with the principal, or if there's an AP of mathematics. The follow-up to that is that we have office hours with the APs of mathematics. So that's where they debrief and they have the conversations about how they're leading their departments. And then when Superintendent Ross and Deputy Superintendent White goes around to do their principal observations, they also always visit an illustrative math classroom. And then the cross-functional team, so we have especially a team of 1 and our multilingual learners. So everyone, at some point, there will be different touch points because illustrative math is a district initiative.
Any other questions or comments from those here in person? Bank on it while I go to Zoom. Anybody on Zoom who has a question or comment for UED?
Not on the Spanish line. I asked, nobody asked anything.
Okay, thank you. Anybody on the Bongo line?
There's no question on the Bangla line also.
How about the Mandarin line?
No questions on Mandarin line.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from anybody else joining us on Zoom? Before I go to CEC members, anybody think of an additional question or comment? Which is too good. Okay, let's move to CEC questions or comments. Nancy?
No, thank you. That's very comprehensive.
I just have one question. Can you talk about the cohorts? Because on multiple slides, it talked about the 4 different cohorts across Brooklyn North. So how are they selected? You know, what kind of similarities do they have, and how are you using the cohort model? Does that make sense?
In which content area?
I just saw there were multiple slides where you were tracking data where.
Graduation cohorts.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Because it was some schools that, like, there was a, District 15 and then a District 14 and others that were in the same cohort, but so I wasn't sure if it was geographical.
Oh, I think you're thinking about the Future Ready slide.
Maybe.
Yeah, so that's not a cohort model.
Okay.
Those are just the schools that applied and were accepted in
Okay.
the initiative. When high school people talk about cohort, usually it means the student groups.
Okay.
So you are assigned, and this is a New York State thing, you are assigned to a cohort based on the day you enter high school. So this is why there's always tons of urgency if kids don't graduate in 4 years. Because then schools are accountable, and tied to our work with attendance is when students stop attending schools for whatever reason, whether they moved or they chose a different school. It's on the school to have that information to properly discharge the student. Otherwise, they remain in the code for the school. The school continues to be accountable for them. So like if the three of us were a cohort and I stopped coming to school, you two can graduate.
Right.
Which is amazing, right? Because 2 of 2 would be 100% graduation. But because I'm still in the cohort, the school would only be at 66% graduation because that still counts. So usually the word cohort, and I think it was the college readiness slide where we were looking at the college and career metrics by cohort. So right now the kids who are graduating this year is cohort 1.
Okay.
Because the state ran out of alphabets.
Okay.
Last year was cohort Z. So now we're into numbers.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. We would love to have the Office of Advisement come and talk. I think that would be great. And any other information you can give us about the new portrait of a student, the whole region's, portfolio system. I think that would be a great topic for, the next time you come back. But, I wanted to ask about the goal on advisement that you sort of had up there. Why don't they have a class in like a whole period dedicated to college advisement in fall of senior year? So, and then you get to 100%, like you just like literally put them in a class 40 minutes a day or whatever, however long a period is, where it's just college advisement.
Some schools do.
Yeah.
Some schools don't. It's not okay, but schools do it different ways.
Yeah.
We honor our principals' choices, and because it is a new expectation and a new goal, we're checking it out.
Yeah.
At some point, there may be a different expectation.
Right.
But for now, it's a lot of trying to understand how different schools are approaching this, because our schools are very different.
All right, thank you.
Leslie?
No questions. Thank you so much.
Katina?
Yeah, I was wondering, what you're seeing as far as mental and emotional health among students, especially in the months since the inauguration. I think that we're seeing a lot of anxiety, especially among New Yorker families, and around education more broadly. And then just thinking about those students as they're thinking about their futures, college education, things their families may be going through. I'm wondering if you're seeing that come through in the school atmospheres as well.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. That's why we're so grateful. Some of the people who should come and present. If you guys haven't met the Project Open Arms team, like phenomenal work. And pardon me if I shared this story before, but last year, Park Slope Collegiate, Principal Sandusky got a call from the 2 brand new students. They literally had just enrolled in school that day. I think there was 17 from Nigeria, maybe. And that night they went back to their shelter and were told they had to move to a men's shelter. And that and this was like before all the structures and systems were in place. Jill calls Janice. Janice galvanizes the team. We call, at this point, Project Open Arms was a team of 1. This incredible woman, Tamara Meyer. We call Tamara, and she just jumps into action. I don't know what she did, but she got our kids, she got them not to evict our kids. She created this whole system then, like literally that night created the system where schools make sure your kids have their registration paperwork, make sure they know that they can call you. And because of this principle, we now have this whole system. The city now honors that if a student is registered in a New York City public school, high school, they do not have to go to the adult shelter. So it seems like a drop in a gigantic, endless ocean, but every victory is a victory. And because we do have amazing people like that in place, that became, because Tamara is who she is, she was like, if these two kids just went through this, there will be thousands of others. And then she created a system and she got people across the city to talk to each other. And she has thousands more stories, but this was particularly, this was personal to us and here, this place.
Does she have a TED Talk?
You know, one of these days, Raphael's smiling because he knows how amazing Tamara is. No, but they're also like they're organizing all the trainings for us, right? For us as district leaders for our schools about literally like, what do you do if non-local law enforcement shows up? And they're working with legal and they're working with the mayor's office and that's comforting, right? Continue, like, to know that there's someone who's thinking about all the moving pieces because we can't all do it and we won't do it well. But to know that at 1 o'clock in the morning, you can send somebody a text and they can get kids not kicked out of a HERC shelter makes you feel really good.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, I'm so happy to be here at, PSMS 676. I want to give our principal Figueroa an opportunity to, share some of, what's going on here at the school. This is Principal Fig.
Good evening, everybody. So glad that you all are here. The proud principal of Harvard Middle School in Brooklyn. As the superintendent mentioned, it is an isolated area. Thank you, Robert Moses. And so right, but we are rich in values, secluded area, right? Because we're really close to the harbor. And we have a lot of opportunity to utilize that to our advantage at the Harvard Middle School, right? So we are teaching a lot of career training opportunities, right? That allow our students to connect with our community, right? In various ways. Our curriculum is centered around utilization of an integrated mission style. And it's very interesting because our students have the opportunity not just only learn the standard-based curriculum and utilize opportunities to really engage in their learning, but they spend a lot of time on it, right? And they utilize a design thinking approach to problem solving. And we do that on a continuous daily basis. So our students engage in the work that they do by actually seeing it as helpful. Right. We are developing a solar system scale model at the moment. We're going to install it somehow across Park Slope and Central Park. And so we'll be talking to the superintendent soon about how we're going to install some of these things, what the installation would look like. But we do a lot of grant writing, and we're a community schools partner. So we utilize that funding to supplement some of that work, right? Because it does cost a lot of money to sustain our programming. But through that opportunity, we are able to connect and partner with the community. So we do have 3 very close partners that are part of the fabric of our school, and that's BOP, Ready Center, and Bloom, which is a makerspace. Most of you have been network right here on Columbia Street. We are partners with Tucker High School, right? So when we wrote the grant to become a Harvard Middle School years ago, we had to propose this particular opportunity as an opportunity to redesign the school and sustain its ability to remain here, right? Because we were at jeopardy of closure. And one of the folks that I made sure we became friends with our high school. And so that's where that relationship started. That's how we essentially became the Harvard Middle School. So we fast forward a few years ahead, and we now our first graduating class. this year. And they did get to a lot of very high schools, from Harvard High School, from Tech, a couple of other schools that we're so, celebrating and really trying to get out there into the community and say, we're really having opportunities that some of the places may not have the opportunity to venture into because they're not close to water, and partnership opportunities, and right. So all of these different ways that we're trying to engage our community. Our students do learn very well using a hands-on approach. Project-based learning is the thing that we do. It does take a lot of time. A lot of planning. But there is it's value, right? We do attract a lot of students that do have special education needs, right? Our classes, sometimes we push the ratio a little bit, right? But the parents really find it an opportunity that is very far and few. And it does support and advance and accelerate their children's learning and engage in school. So we do attract, right, population of students that definitely have, disabilities, so to speak, or have more of like attention deficit, sort of like executive functioning, neurodivergent sorts of students, which is fine. I mean, that just gives us more opportunity to utilize superpowers. Right, I can't sit still. Right, so we kind of change the whole conceptual understanding regarding how the brain functions and how people learn. Right, we can utilize that as an advantage. We see students as this is a superpower you have. So how do we utilize it appropriately? How do we engage you? And how do we tap into that and make it valuable? Right. So. I don't know if you have any questions, if you have answers, I'm talking a lot, but we definitely do recruit. This auditorium is full during our recruitment opportunities, which is great. And we're happy to see that folks, are willing to send their training to us. The new school that should be opening up very soon, the block on Downhill Street. It is supposed to open in 26, 27, which is where we want. I don't know the particulars around the stages as of yet, right? I know that it's in process. I'm really excited about that. It's supposed to have a huge Olympic-sized celebration. We are career training-ish, right? So pre-CTE, I do have one teacher on sabbatical, which is going to complete the career training education certification at the end of the year. We should have that leverage, so at least we're starting with one. That's an official CTE course. We do have official pre-CTE opportunities. And a lot of our students so far, we're not directly a feeder school for Harvard, but inadvertently we did get quite a few students into the school this year. So.
All right.
Any questions, any concerns, wants, needs, I'm here. How long are you guys gonna be here? Does anybody need anything else other than water or pizza?
That's good. Yeah, please guys, partake in the pizza. Thank you. So I do have a few updates and acknowledgements. I want to wish Ramadan Mubarak to our Muslim families, which concludes on Saturday and is followed up by Eid. The date I recently learned depends on the sighting of the crescent moon. So I would recommend Nick Drake's song Pink Moon to our Muslim families celebrating beginnings and ends. March, as we heard, is Pink Moon. It's a great song. March is Women's History Month. Books by women are frequently banned. As you know, I feature banned books in my meetings. Judy Blume is one of the most banned authors in the United States, but she is a national treasure. Her book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. It's deals with puberty, menstruation, teen sexuality, and religion. One thing that made the book particularly controversial at the time and relevant to me as a child is that she's from a mixed religion household. Many of our District 15 students are from mixed faith and culture households. And while this theme may be less controversial today, the book was a rite of passage for my generation, and I hope it continues to be for many generations to come. March is also Irish American Heritage Month, and who doesn't love a banned Irish female author? The Country Girls trilogy by Edna O'Brien was banned by the Irish Censorship Board for the book's frank discussions of sexuality and violence towards women. O'Brien wrote the first book in 3 weeks, but she faced threats and significant public disdain in Ireland. A priest even publicly burned this book. Her book is about fathers coming home drunk and beating their wives. It's about 14-year-old girls walking to school and being followed by married men in cars. But it's also about leaving home in spite of poverty to get an education. It's about living with roommates and reading James Joyce and wearing lipstick and speaking too loudly in Irish idioms and drinking too much and somehow surviving it all. So I recommend The Country Girls. Some updates. Social media, I recently received word that in an effort to have a more streamlined communication, District 15 will no longer be using social media platforms. So thank you so much. You can go to d15brooklyn.org for the latest updates. Very excited, really appreciate that. Librarians equals literacy shares that the New York City Council is setting a hearing for April 8th for intro. The bill's name is 1125, the Librarians Count Bill. This bill was introduced in November by Lincoln Ressler and Rita Joseph. It requires the DOE to report vital data on the number of school librarians and libraries in New York City. So you can sign up for more information about how to participate in those hearings, and I'll put that link in the chat. And yes, CEC elections are underway. The application period has ended, and interested applicants are also encouraged to apply to the Brooklyn Borough President for an appointment. Candidate forums are in full swing until April 2nd. The candidate forums are an opportunity to get to know who the candidates are running for these seats. We had 2 candidate forums last week, and those videos are available online. I'll put that link in the chat as well. And the voting period begins April 25th through May 13th. Make sure you have your NICSA account. Your child's information has to be connected to your account, and you'll need to get a code from your parent coordinator to allow your child's data to be connected to your account. So if you haven't, please open up your NICSA account, make sure it hasn't been deactivated. I'm gonna put a bunch of links in the chat about all of that. We do have a CEC vacancy. We have 2 CEC vacancies. You can pass through. That's fine. No big deal. It's more. It's cash. We're cash here. CEC. We have 2 vacancies, one for the parent of an English language learner and another for a District 75, parent of a District 75 student. I'll put information about how to apply for that in the chat. If you know of anybody, please send them our way. There's also elections for the PEP. So basically, there's a vacancy. People have already submitted applications for that vacancy, and CEC presidents will be voting on that, in the coming months. There is also an election for the next term, for that seat. And if you are interested in serving on the panel as one of the 5 parents elected by the CEC presidents, please complete the application, and send it in by April 15th. I'll put that link in the chat. It's parent applications at schools.nyc.gov. So if you're here in person, just go Google PEP NYC-DOE and you'll find the information there. There is a PEP meeting tomorrow, but it is in the Bronx. PIST NYC, which is our transportation advocacy group, is encouraging families to testify at this meeting about the upcoming school bus contract expirations. The contract portion of the agenda will include discussions of GPS routing contracts and the expiring bus company contracts. And that meeting begins tomorrow at the Bronx Career and College Preparatory High School. Sign-in will begin at 5:30. And you can send written testimony to the PEP members at the link that I'm also putting in the chat. And finally, in my continuing segment called US Constitution Watch, Dan Goldman released a statement regarding the Trump EO on dismantling the Department of Education. So if you're interested in reading that statement, I'll put that in the chat. And Tish James released a response to the Dear Colleague letter. I think I probably shared that last time as well. I'll put that in the chat. And now I'm going to turn it over to Katina, because Katina attended the March 20th SCA Board of Trustees meeting in person. I don't know anybody in parent leadership who's ever been to this meeting before. She did it. She's gone where no man has gone before. And take it away, Katina.
Sure. It was an amazing experience. I'm really glad that I went. So the reason that I wanted to go, those of you who have been in some of the recent CEC meetings know that we passed a resolution a couple of months ago asking for more accountability and transparency from the school construction authority. There have been too many incidents at schools all over the city, but of course we were highlighting especially things that had happened in District 15, where it's clear that there's some type of disconnect happening between city oversight, the school construction authority, the workers who are on the ground in the school, and the principals and school leadership who don't have authority over the folks who are in their building. It has led to some safety concerns in some of the schools. It's led to more damage, has had to be redone, lots of contract overruns, and delays, which of course nobody likes. We submitted that resolution and didn't hear anything. And their board meetings are open to the public. So I went. I don't think they expected to see anybody there. Also present at the meeting was Lainey Hainson, who runs Class Size Matters, and she also had comments that she wanted to make regarding the SCA's transparency, particularly around what seats might be made available in upcoming years as the district and the city work towards reaching the eventual goal of full compliance with the mandate. There are currently 2 trustees for the SCA of the mandated 3. One of those trustees was present at the meeting. One of the trustees is the chancellor. The chancellor's deputy was there on her behalf. The head of the SCA was there. SCA's legal representative was there. And a couple of other folks, chief of staff, and the secretary of the organization. They gave me space to speak. I read the resolution in full. I felt that they received it respectfully. I was mostly engaging with the deputy chancellor, who said that he appreciated the fact that we had gone through the work of putting this resolution together. He said he had not seen it prior to that day, and that he would be preparing a point-by-point response for us. Said that yes, there are some things in our resolution that are areas where there's room for improvement, and he thinks there's some things that we just don't quite understand, which is also, I mean, fair. It's part, that's part of the transparency. So overall, I was glad that I went. It felt very good to be there, and I think it was an interesting moment for me to think about what are the spaces that are ostensibly open to the public, but that do not feel welcoming to the public. I, know that I was within my rights to be there and to make comment, and they listened to me respectfully, but I wouldn't say that I felt, welcome there. But I think it would be great to see more parents taking space that is available to us, when we have things that we want to say.
It is scary.
All right, so we have a guest speaker here from Mothers Against Media Addiction. We have Jessica Elefante here. Welcome. Come on up.
Hi, everyone. So I'm gonna keep my clock going, just so I don't go over. I tend to be long-winded. Thank you so much, Antonia, for having me and the rest of the community education team. My name is Jessica Elefante. I'm a mother of two 15 boys, pre-K and 8th grade, and the chapter leader of Mothers Against Media Addiction for the Brooklyn chapter, the regional chapter that started here in the backyard. I'm going to start today with something personal. My journey as a kids and child safety advocate began back in 2011 when I held my first son in my arms. In my previous life as a brand and communications strategist, I accidentally fell face first into a digitally based career. As an early adopter and overuser of these platforms, I was the forefront of online growth via social media and cell phones. Unfortunately, all that screen time caught up with me, and I became a canary in the coal mine of sorts for what happens when we spend too much time online. Today, it's called digital dementia. It's an actual thing, but the kids call it brain rot. I developed brain fog, disassociation, memory loss, and many other symptoms after an entire life without technology. My family didn't have a computer, and I didn't get a cell phone until I was 20. Yet I still became addicted to my technology, despite not even liking it. When I discovered the source of my unwellness, my 13-year-old was 2 at the time, and I kept having the same thought. What would it be like for him and an entire generation who never knew a life without screens? What chance would they have to keep their brains healthy? Sadly, those issues are just a fraction of what kids face today. I now have a 3-year-old too. Yes, I'm one of those crazy people. And despite everything we now know, it's not any easier for me to protect him like I did my older son. In fact, it's much harder as tech has embedded itself into every corner of childhood in the past decade since I began this journey. Over the past 14 years, I've immersed myself in this issue as a writer, critic, and author. I'm here tonight to share Mama's research-driven concerns about smartphones in schools and to call for change on behalf of countless parents. This issue hit home for me in a very specific way last year. In September of 2024, I wrote an email to some of you in this room about the concerns I had around screen use. I voiced the worries that many parents share that certain apps and access to technology and smartphone use, or even internet culture during class, was undermining students' learning, literacy, and well-being. The response I received was well thought out, but they said, "We hear you, and our platforms comply with FERPA and COPA." But what if I told you that FERPA and COPA are federal privacy laws from the dial-up era, 1974 and 1998 respectively, long before smartphones, streaming, or TikTok even existed? Our children deserve more than outdated minimum standards. So I stand here not just as a parent with a personal story, but as one voice of a growing movement, Mothers Against Media Addiction, otherwise known as MAMA, as you can see on my shirt. It's a grassroots coalition of parents and allies fighting to protect kids from the harms of technology, specifically screen use. Like Mothers Against Drunk Driving did, we are taking on a massive public health threat and pushing for change in our homes, our communities, and across the nation. This is our three-part mission. Number one, educating parents about the actual risks of unfettered device use. Number two, getting smartphones out of schools so that learning can come first. And number three, ensuring tech products have basic safety standards, just like any other consumer product. Our kids are in crisis. I wish this was just mom paranoia. Unfortunately, the data and lived experience now today tell a darker story. We are in the midst of an unprecedented youth mental health crisis. Rates of anxiety, depression, and self-harm among teens have skyrocketed in the past decade. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 14. I'm going to say that again. Suicide is now the second leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 14. My son is 13, killing more kids in that age group than all forms of cancer combined. Okay? So what's changed in our kids' world over the last 10 years to fuel this crisis? Research by social psychologists like Jonathan Haidt points to what he calls the great rewiring of childhood. Around 2010 to 2012, my son was born in 2011, adolescents' lives underwent a seismic shift. That's when smartphones and social media exploded into the hands of teenagers and everybody. And their day-to-day social experiences moved online. The timing is undeniable. As soon as smartphones became commonplace, teen mental health plummeted. We're literally watching a generation, as dubbed by Jonathan Haidt's book, the anxious generation, struggle to cope with an onslaught of digital pressures their brains are not wired to handle. As a parent, I've seen how constant connectivity can prey against person's emotions. These devices are exposing our kids to a fire hose of stimuli and social comparison that even adults have trouble managing. But mental health is only one part of the picture. The academic and cognitive impacts on in-school devices use is troubling. During the same decade that smartphones invaded, we've seen a steep decline in students' academic performance, unlikely in the pandemic. This is especially in reading and writing. According to the nation's report card today, 13-year-olds are performing at shockingly low levels. I'm sure most of you know this. Their math understanding has slipped back to levels last seen since the 1990s, and their reading skills, particularly among the lowest performing students, are now worse than when the NAEP testing began in the 1970s. Even before the pandemic, between 2012 and 2010, long-term trend data showed 13-year-old reading scores dropped by 7 points and math by 13, a reversal that began right when smartphones arrived. We can't ignore the correlation. As our students spend more time scrolling and less time reading books, their literacy suffers. As they got used to TikTok length attention spans, their ability to wrestle with math problems declined. So why is this happening? One major reason is distraction. Smartphones are designed to grab your attention, beeps, vibrations, endless notifications. It's hard for an adult to work and concentrate when that's happening. We're all doing it here, even in this room. Imagine what it's like for a 12-year-old in class trying to pay attention to a long-form math question. Well, their friends are Snapchatting and Instagramming them in their pocket. Research has found that media multitasking, like toggling between a lecture and phone screen, severely interferes with attention and working memory of the content, harming everything from the test performance and the note-taking to reading comprehension and self-regulation. Even when students want to pay attention, the smartphone is a tempting interrupter. Studies confirm the mere presence of a phone, I apologize, I'm probably already over, can diminish a student's focus and cognitive capacity. This isn't about technophobia. It's about cognitive bandwidth. And it's not just grades and test scores. Test scores at stake. Ask any teacher, and they'll tell you how smartphones have made the classroom harder to manage. I hear stories from educator friends about the first years phones were allowed in their school, how quickly it derailed class engagement. Teachers find themselves policing Snapchat instead of switching Spanish. I feel terrible about that. Precious class time is lost to repeated requests. Please put the phone. In some extreme cases, attempts to enforce rules have even led to angry confrontation. Having teachers have been threatened, punched, and even pepper sprayed by students when trying to have their devices taken. We don't allow other addictive, harmful items in class like cigarettes or alcohol, yet phones, which research shows hijack attention just like an addictive substance, still get a free pass in many schools. Unfair to teachers and detrimental to students. Beyond grades and test scores, there's something even more fundamental at risk. Our children's social and emotional development. Schools aren't just about academic learning. They are when kids learn how to communicate, how to empathize, and build relationships face to face. But cutting into that crucial learning, replacing in-person interaction with isolating screen time is a detriment to us all. Gene Twenge has documented how since the early 2010s, teens are spending far more time with each other in person, hanging out. Can I keep going? Couple minutes, great. The result is a cohort of young people who have fewer opportunities to practice skills and more feelings of isolation. As a mom, it pains me to pick up my son from school and see a group of eighth graders all sitting together hunched over. Or we're here at lunchtime, instead of playing basketball and trading jokes, they're scrolling in silence. When my son entered middle school post-pandemic and there was yet to be a cell phone policy, he would come home and proclaim, "I lost another friend today, Mom." The first time he said this, I asked if they got transferred to another school. His response, "No, we got an iPhone for their birthday and I won't see them anymore." What he described is known as present absence. Real human connection is being displaced by digital feed addiction. The good news is, I swear I'm not just doom and gloom, the tide is turning, and when you remove the device, kids do come back to life. The situation I've described is dire, but there's a hopeful flip side. The change is already happening. 79 education systems worldwide, over 40% of countries have enacted bans or strict limits on students' smartphone use. We have evidence that these policies work, and test scores went up significantly when phones were banned in the UK. This is out of the London School of Economics, with the biggest improvements among struggling students. Students also report better class participation, fewer disciplinary incidents, and richer face-to-face socialization. We see this as a growing movement. It's not just us in the Brooklyn backyard anymore. We have over 32 chapters across 20 states. We're working with legislation to pass this at a high level so that schools really feel supported. But I'm going to jump ahead here to the very end and say that I want to directly address our school leaders, board members, and superintendent present here tonight. You have a tough job. I know you care deeply about our students. This is your chance to make a decision that is truly in their best interest. It's time to adopt phone-free school policy, not next year or when the state forces us, but now. Every additional school day that students are attached to their phones is a day of learning loss. Specifically, I'm calling on you to work with parents and teachers to remove them from bell to bell. The exact method can be worked out, be simple and affordable, and there are successful models to follow. That's not a reason not to do it. The concern is how. The key is that once that first bell rings, the student has it.
Finally, we urge you to advocate upstream to your voice in support of updating our state and federal laws, FERPA and COPA, to reflect the realities of 2025. Schools shouldn't have to shoulder all of this alone. We need modern regulation. I'm so over, and I really don't.
Okay, no, thank you.
I have, I guess I'll do my final closing. I know that change is hard, and, I want you to know that as parents are ready to support in any way we will jump in to help make this happen. We know that it's going to be awkward in whatever the transition is for the future, but our children's mental health and academic success and overall well-being are deteriorating before our eyes. We have a responsibility to act. In closing, I want to bring this back to why I started this. My own children. My son is entering high school, and I want him to walk into that school and have his full potential. Let's make our schools a sanctuary from tech overload and the outside world. Engage parents as allies in the effort, and I promise you that we are ready to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, our parliamentarian is going to manage them.
Would anybody in the audience like to ask a question or comment for our mama representative? Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Great.
Cell phone policy.
Awesome. I love to hear that.
And I think it's, it does support with engagement and mental health and students' interaction. We spend our time during lunch, recess, in art, play outside. Wonderful. So, yeah, totally.
That's wonderful. I went from high school to high school finding out what all the policies were before I made my list, which is crazy. So that's awesome to hear. Okay, yeah.
I was gonna say, I am a parent of a rising middle schooler, and it was, right, it was like actually understood that centralized, approach to them. And it was a little bit appalling for me to hear the different people kind of defend or not their policies. And so I'm curious about what your findings are in terms of like what, if you know, percentage of schools that have policies.
It's shifting right under our feet right now. Had you asked 2 years ago, I would say some. Now, definitely more. There is this sort of call from parents. People are asking these questions of their schools and their administrators. And so we have a policy, we had a policy, we have a policy, but it's not enforced. We're waiting for the city to do something, we're waiting for the state to do something. And so mom is working at state level, at the city level, and then also within our own schools. And so I've met with my son's school, who's actually one of the ones that I think are doing a really great job. They've been kind of ahead of the curve on all of this. I will always be the one to push and say, what more can we do? How can we help other schools in the area? No, I would say on my son's school list, there was probably 7 that had a policy. Of the 7, Bell 2. Out of how many high schools are there? A lot.
500
Yeah.
or 600?
Yeah.
To that point, do you and your organization offer an implementation guide or different approaches to empower the principals to fix?
Yeah, for sure. So, joinmama.org, sorry, I left that part out. You can find all this information there. We have, chapter leaders in different boroughs now. And we have all sorts of advocacy tools for how to have these conversations. And I always say, start with your teacher, right? Go directly to the teacher, then from the teacher to meet with the principal, and just keep going. I was really hopeful that this was going to be something that was implemented before the past school year, but that just
didn't happen, for a million different reasons, none of which had anything to do with the kids with the need. And so we're kind of going the other direction right now, which is district by district and school by school. But yes, long as when the and you're looking at a piece of it.
Any other questions or comments from people here in person? Hey, anybody on Zoom who has a question or comment? Anybody in the Mandarin line? Oh, yeah.
No question on Bangla line.
No question.
No question from Mandarin line.
Spanish line?
The same in Spanish. There's no questions on the Spanish line.
Yeah, well.
Because I'm thinking, should I say something or should I not? And when I'm looking at a situation, I look at it from two sides, just to simplify it. My perspective and the perspective of the person I'm talking about or the situation I'm dealing with. How would they feel? So I'm thinking, okay, I'm 10 years old. I can't buy my phone. I'm addicted to it. So to make a long story short, I'm gonna tolerate whatever you deal with in terms of taking my device. But best believe, as soon as that bell hits, from the point you take it, I'm thinking about that phone. Cause I've literally seen adults who forget their phone in the store. It looks like they lost a child or a parent or something, like the angst in their face is like someone died. And my question to you, just to bring it to the head, can you give me an example quickly as to how you would implement in a real practical situation? Like some of your ideas, just brainstorming in this form, like, I'm 10, you're gonna take, you want me to vibe out with my peers and let's talk quality days. But I'm thinking about my phone. How are you gonna introduce me to socialization, being interested in the human that's next to me, rather than my phone, I'm missing my lights, so I just uploaded a new TikTok, oh my God.
Yeah, you make a really, really great point and you have a great question. You can't create a vacuum where something once was, you have to put something in its place. And so that's why schools are such an amazing place to do this, because they're already in community together. They're physically in community together. When they're home, I mean, even my own son, I got into a video game when he became a teenager. This was symbolic for me, the anti-tech, person. And I noticed this trend right away of the friends stopped coming over. And the reason was because they were on their devices separately at all of their houses. So they aren't physically together even after school, like you said, because they're back to their devices. And so you are definitely going to have hard conversations. You're going to bring them into the conversation. Why we're doing this. It's not about punishing them, it's about protecting them. And it's not about shielding them from the world. That's a pushback that I'll get. Well, you can't shield them from this world. No, but you can introduce them to it when it's age appropriate, and meaning that they're able to handle it and understand it. As my son got a gift card from someone and he ran to me having to use my computer, and he was so excited, and this just showed me, oh my God, Mom, you're gonna be so happy. I just got this thing and I put all your information in and I saved you 20%. But his mind is blown. And I don't think anyone ever talked to these kids about what a pop-up is and what that does. But like, we're talking like ground level understanding. So they have to be able to understand it. And I didn't get into all the bad actors and the weaponizing of, especially at this age group, what they're who's going after them and for what. So what I would say is, in Jonathan's casebook, it's returning to the body, returning to community, returning to outdoors. So you can do, anything like, Lenore Skenazy has the free range kids. She has a whole program that is free for schools to use. That is a million different things that children can do in class, outside of class, during recess, after school programs. That is free and with their peers, and it brings them back together and shows them how to do that. Personally, I've been doing this work for 14 years, mostly with adults to start. The first 2 weeks suck. And if you do it for a few days and you take it away, your whole theory is out the window. The kids are gonna be like, we were right. But if you get to 10 days, if you just get through that hard you will start to see it. You will see that uncomfortability start to go away, that they will start to learn how to do that again. And with kids, it's actually faster than what adults, because they don't think about the things that we do as much. So I think knowing that you want to do this at a certain time, let's say you wait until the fall of next year, and you make plans now, you bring in experts like Lenore Skenazy, like Jonathan Kite, and say, okay, how can we build something out to support these kids? Because yeah, they might go back to their devices, they will afterwards, but they will have had 8 blissful hours to learn all of these skill sets and be focused, and maybe something clicks. That these things will less of a pull, or maybe make better choices than
I had a couple related kind of follow-up questions.
Sure.
Is, I hear everything you're saying. I agree with so much of it. But I'm also thinking about just the world that we live in now, right? And so the first piece was the role of tech teachers in the schools. And even if we reduce the use of cell phones in the schools, not pretending like devices don't exist and social media doesn't exist. And so I feel like schools still need to be a place where students learn how to safely engage and learn what pop-ups are and all of
I
those
would love a
things.
class like that. I would die for it. That literally it is teaching them from what is the internet? How was it built? What was it meant for? Okay, who utilizes it? Like they don't know the difference between, editorial content versus fake news versus an advertisement. You see what's happening with these young girls and boys going for right after school, and it's sort of like addicted to consuming, but they don't know why. But if they understood how the environment worked, capitalize on that would be really helpful. How to protect yourself, how to save your data, how not to turn off cookies. Like I'm talking like not learn by using, but actually have a class that teaches them everything would be so beneficial. Because we can't deny this. And people say that we want them to have the skills for the 21st century or whatever. They will have those skills. There are studies that show that if children have not had anything, and then they were to receive it in like 9th and 10th grade, they catch up within 6 months, usually shorter. But what they've gained in those years is things that those other kids never developed. And so you want to think in those terms, okay? We can give this to them, sure, and let's be honest, things that they're learning, right? They're learning how to scroll, they're learning how to click, they're not learning what they should be learning. And I know you have digital literacy. I think this goes a little bit before that, maybe, I don't know. But not just very intentional and age appropriate. If someone can teach my son what the internet is and how it works, and that I'm not a crazy person, that would be awesome. I haven't found anything like that yet.
My other piece, just super quick, is, even if we remove phones, so many of the schools are now one-to-one with laptops. And so it's right, it's about how those,
That's our next step.
how they're being used and how they're being integrated and being used as a tool and the teaching. But I think, again, it's important, especially since there has been that push for the digital literacy starting in elementary school, about how it's done meaningfully and purposefully with support from experts.
I think for me, again, you come back to like age appropriate, elementary school, I think there's no place for any sort of devices whatsoever. There's no positive upswing to the downswing of what they're not getting. Digital literacy might be reading them books about what the internet is, having them start to understand this, virtual universe. Get them to start thinking about it, but it doesn't mean put a computer in front of them at that point. They have too many skills left to learn, social, emotional, things like that. I was here today to talk about Mama and our mission for phones, but immediately after the mission for phones is our mission for ed tech. And I believe that that's kind of where the email started for myself. Personally, I understand how these companies operate because I worked for them, and I know the regulation that's there and how when you have a student who's been struggling or not enough teachers for a classroom, somebody can sell themselves as a savior with customized learning, and they've tailored it specifically to the child. Well, finally, they're able to say these things and do these things and give case studies that were likely funded. And there's not 10 to 20 year research to support their claims. And so we're trying to play catch up to show that, like, sure, they might have scored higher on this game that they're playing, but it doesn't mean that they're retaining the information a year down the line. Spoiler alert, they're not. And I think many of the teachers will tell you that. And then you have the other thing of AI, which I also didn't touch on, but it's wholly unregulated. We have no idea what this is going to do to anyone. Yeah, we have theories, I'm gonna leave my theories out of it. So unregulated things I really think shouldn't be around our children until we have proof that it's safe.
Wow, you are just like singing my song. Like this is like one of the not single, but one of the most important topics of the generation of kids. I have 3 children. My first, I was born in 2002, and I saw with my eyes what happened to kids who were on those phones. I saw it, I've seen the kids through lifespan. It's not good. And one of the things that parents ask me often is they want to know how to control these devices. And my husband is a software engineer. It took him forever to figure these things out. They make it extremely complicated. I just found a site, I just wanted to share, internetmatters.org. Okay. That has it's just like little boxes that says how to regulate this device, this device, this device. Just write down. So internetmatters.org, and this is what it took my husband, I don't know, like a year to figure out. And my kid will always find a workaround, and he has to be on top of things, but so important. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and I think you deserve time definitely to talk about this. It's very important. And in whatever way that we can be of support, or we can support families with this, because they are struggling a lot, and children are struggling. And it is a very serious issue. And YouTube in the schools, it just should be banned. Drives me crazy. 100% should be banned. It's the most unsafest place. It's extremely unsafe. I was shocked when I saw my kid was on it for school. So I just want to say thank you. Yeah, in any way that we can support.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I mean, I really wish that this was a universal thing because it benefits everybody. But we don't know when that's going to happen. And so I'm also very much here as a mom of 2 kids in your district saying, and I'm at the extreme end. I've been protecting this since he was born. I've been for PS29, tried to give him an email address. I refused. I was asking for meetings with the library, trying to get ABC Mouse out there. So I'm on this end. Right, and back when I started, there was this thing called the digital divide, where they felt that certain families or children were going to be left behind for lack of means, and so tech companies went and government went and outfitted all the schools and all the families and anyone, and now you have this other digital divide.
which is that, there's the parents who, might have the time or the ability to keep protecting and going through all the workarounds because they're designed to keep resetting. You'll think you have the controls, the school might think they'll have the controls, and the tech companies and the kids have skirted around somehow. And so now the new digital divide is that the children whose parents are working a lot, might not have an interest in this or know about this, or have just believed what the tech companies have said, which is this is good for humanity and good for the kids. That is the new digital divide. And so I now try and spend my time advocating on a level of community. So it's not just my kid who's getting the benefit of my, some might say psychopathness, but others might say advocacy. I didn't want it to get here, just on a personal note, like, I really thought, you know, when I started talking about this in 2014, that it would change things, and it's taken a decade and a lot of, negative effects of a whole generation of kids. And I really think that we can turn it around with getting the phones out for 8 hours a day. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one sentence. No, I really appreciate what you've done. I appreciate the cohesive approach of looking into how families may be facing this versus how schools can provide support to balance what's happening at home. Unfortunately, it's not always working for each other. And I have seen a lot of that divide happening with parents, as you just mentioned, the counter initiatives that may come from schools or school districts due to safety concerns or other issues. What would be interesting to me is to create, based on the research that you have, a couple of models, age-based models that we can propose to schools, to principals, to the district as alternatives for us to implement within our own communities.
We would love to partner with you on that. So Julie Scelfo is the founder of Mothers Against Media Addiction. She's a district mom. She couldn't be here tonight. I'm one of the spokespeople, but she would be literally sitting amongst all of you and saying, okay, let's bring in this expert, let's bring in this one. This is backed by science, backed by all vetted. This is what is recommended. I would love to do that with you, and I think that that would be great. And I also think that, you know, there's all these hurdles of, I see them as small hurdles, right? Oh, I don't want my kid to be ed tech. I want him to use pen and paper. We don't have a printer. Well, okay, I know the pandemic like shifted things. Like we don't have a budget for paper, like, or we don't have books anymore. Like if we know this is coming, we can strategically plan this out so that those little hurdles aren't there. The other one is, you know, the thing that I think would be helpful for the question on the end of like, how to like bridge this is some parents will feel some fear about not being able to contact their child all day long because they've never known any different. And so there is this re-education that has to happen that like you can call the school. The children are safer if there's a fire drill, if they don't have their phones on them. I mean, I experienced this once. My kid called me because he heard that there was a bomb threat at another school. It was all misinformation going through the text channels. And so now all parents are calling and showing up before school when nothing has actually happened. And so what if something has happened? And so there's gonna have to be this like other educational component, which is just relearning how to operate without being so withholding, and they call it like sticky, like you get stuck to this, like everything is on this, you can't imagine a world by not doing it. So we can develop, we can run programs. I remember Mothers Against Media Addiction and the FBA, the food companies coming into my school. I can remember the pamphlets, we send them to your parents, they give the talks, like we're here right in our backyard literally, and we'll partner in any way that will help you all bring this to life.
Thank you. Yeah, jumping onto that idea, we'd love it if your organization drafted a resolution about you know, you're asked that District 15, sure, I don't know, how feasible it is for our district to go its own way.
That was the part that I put out of my speech.
On this, but, we can propose it and have a conversation with our superintendent and with the community around a resolution asking our schools in District 15 to ban phone, bell to bell, because I don't know what's going on at the state level. I don't know where things are going with Hopewell. It's very ambiguous and it keeps changing. So if your organization drafted that resolution and sent it to us, we can have a conversation about it and that would be something I'd be very excited about.
That would be amazing. Thank you very much. And the resolution, we would put it together because what's happening in state is murky, ambiguous, and just bring it and send it to you.
Yeah, just email it to me and we'll put it on an agenda to have a conversation. Also, when I was young, I took, self-defense classes as a young woman so that when I walk down an alley, I can protect myself. Now my daughters have to take internet self-defense classes.
Wait,
when they go down a dark alley.
do they exist or no?
I'm joking, but that's basically, you need internet self-defense class.
That is 100% what we need, and, I get calls all the time, weekly, from other families saying this just happened, how do I handle this? And here's the other thing. Because we're all, a tad removed through our screens, and I heard you mention, that I heard you, about, requests by parents to go back into school. So what happens is that the community aspect of physically being together, parents and kids and parents amongst one another is less and less. And so, we all need this like re-education, and what these families are calling me and saying, what do you do? How do you talk about this? What do you say? But if we're coming together and if we're like essentially platforming this conversation, we may not have all the answers, but we're starting to figure it out together. And some of the teachers, hey, I found this, hey, this student did this. And, we're not getting into the nitty gritty that everybody knows about, but you have to, I'm with the families, New York students that are no longer with us because they follow the TikTok challenge of fentanyl that's happening on Snapchat, suicide. Like, there's the very dark stuff that I try not to bring forward so much and just make it about the education and the social connection. But yeah, we need those classes. Like, that's exactly what we need, because it's not changing. And as much as we're working on legislation, to help and design it, with safety features in mind and children in mind, as soon as you do something like this, they shift. And it's like trying to pin down a shadow. And so the only path forward is resilience and understanding and awareness and knowledge. But that doesn't mean using it. It means learning about it and using it at an age appropriate way.
Okay, you guys covered everything. I think this is really important, and it's a lot to like wrap your brain around, but it's a great conversation, and I feel like so many other people on the board and on the council feel as well.
Wonderful. And I wanted to say one more thing that I cut out that I think is important. There's a lot of shame associated with this for parents, feeling guilty for the fact that they have given their child something and now it's a problem. So it's a very nuanced conversation, it's a very emotional conversation. And then there's shame on the children's end. And so this is why, another reason why I want the bell to bell, because if you tell a kid that they should be able to not look at their phone, or they should be able to focus, and they physically can't because this is designed so they physically can't, it's a self-fulfilling horrible cycle for a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old.
And certain kids are more susceptible, to addiction than others.
Of course, exactly. So, thank you very much for having me. I have a bunch of documents that I'd like to share that are just like the
Yeah.
facts and stuff like that. And not to, I should have, I have them, can I email them?
Yes,
to you?
that's perfect.
Okay.
Tina might have a question.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay,
Thank
all right.
you.
Thank you so much for coming.
We're gonna go now.
Yeah.
And-
You're All right, we will move on to our superintendent's report. Thank you so much.
How did the time your permit's gonna run out in 10 minutes?
We're okay. We're good.
It's just like, it's gonna be-
I think we got till 10. We
Oh,
got till 10.
now, oh, all right, cool. I wanna make sure. So, good evening, everyone. I'm just trying a little bit this way. How are you all?
It's easier for you to be over there?
Yeah, sure. Please. Can you hear me?
Yeah, this will pick you up.
This month is a little bit shorter in terms of the information we're gonna share, because we've been sharing a lot of the information. We heard, you earlier, the high school was talking about the district CEP. We have been sharing that every single month, and so we've covered all those aspects. So in the last 2 months, we'll talk about, what the results have been as a result of the end of the year, evaluation of the DCEP that I'll share with you. So just a few things that I wanted to cover, this month. Just talking about on the next slide, celebrating and honoring in March, as we all heard, Women's History Month. We don't speak about it enough. Women's History Month is not just 1 month, it's just a moment to celebrate all the accomplishments that women have had in our history. I like to talk about my mom because I'm here because of her. And unfortunately, she's not here with us anymore. Happy Holly and St. Patrick's Day, and then upcoming month, next month, we have quite a few things. We have our Passover, we have Easter, we have our Arab American Heritage Month, Earth Day, Poetry Month, and Autism Awareness. That's the next line. So these are the things that are coming up in April, as well as a break, a well-needed break for our students, especially since the month of March is so long with no days off. We're really going to talk a little bit about some celebrations. I'm going to talk a little bit about some curriculum highlights for 3 schools that we visited this past month in both elementary and middle school. In elementary, obviously looking at the HMH and Wit and Wisdom, and in the middle school, our IM, because that's where we're doing illustrative math. And in touching on that, just kind of looking at, in this focus of the video, you'll see more about how they're using progress monitoring and using the data to help provide tailored instruction for small groups of students, and you'll be able to see some of that. In terms of the district celebrations, on the next slide. We had our PBL work share. I'm not sure if any of you were able to attend, but at Middle School 51, we had our project-based learning fair, where kids across every single school in our district were able to showcase their work and how they're aligning the work that they're doing in alignment to the curricula. So I know that we hear a lot of things about what's been going on with the curricula citywide, but here we value project-based learning, as you can see, students participating across our district from our K all the way to our 12th. I didn't leave until about 7:30, even though it ended at 7, because I ended up spending time with the 3 high school students at the last moment, because I made sure we spoke to every single student, or at least I got to speak to every single group. So I was able to talk to the high school students at the end. For those of you who don't know, 3 of the high school students that I spoke to are from BHS, which is our Boron Hill High School. They're international baccalaureate school, so part of their 12th grade project is that they almost have to write kind of like a thesis about self and identity in terms of understanding where they move to work. And so like I got to speak to one student who, she talked about how she used sewing of old materials and creating new outfits from materials that would have been tossed out. But she also talked about how that helped her develop a sense of patience, a sense of keeping structures, because she was constantly not able to be structured. And so being able to do that helped her create timeline for herself so that she's able to get through her own, I guess, barriers that are preventing her from being able to be successful, like time management. And so it was just great to see the students talking about these things and expressing how they were learning. And so it's always a great experience to see the project-based learning across our district. The next slide, PS 38, celebrating School Spirit Day this past month, which students participated in different events across their school. And our next slide You have, Jacqueline Woodson, who's an author. The Other Side is one of her stories about, talking about a young black girl who sat on a fence who, on the other side, was a white family in the South, and just being able to connect with students as students interviewed her about her book and why she wrote some of the books that she's written. So it's just always great to see that our schools are engaging outside of just the curricula that we hear about all the time. In our next slide. Respect for all and read for all, connecting reading for all and respect for all collaboratively, and PS 131 had done some of that work for an entire week with their school community. And they created some pledges around what they were planning to do and thinking about doing as it relates to respecting all in alignment to reading. So that was a great thing to see there. And our little pre-K center, this is the pre-K center that sits on 3rd Avenue and Carroll Street, and then the two that sit on 25th Street. They did a whole kindness peace tree. They did some respect for all in their school. I mean, this is just showing some of the little bit of celebration that they had pre and post the Lunar New Year, where they did some festivities and brought all the classes together so that there was a collaboration between the 3 sites as opposed to just one site in its own separately. Next slide. My team had a retreat at Brain Pop. We spent a lot of time figuring out how we're going to plan for next year in collaboration amongst each other and thinking about how are we going to think about going deeper and supporting schools. Where we're believing that we have to do a lot of our work and our work thinking about next year. So giving a precursor to what the goals are going to be for next year. I'm going to focus a lot more on the foundational skills. There are 7 shifts that the state is asking us to focus on and the city has been asking us to focus on. One of them happens to be the curricula that you all been hearing about in the media for the past 2, 3, 4 years. That's just one shift. There are several other shifts in order to be able to make sure that kids are able to read. And one of the main ones for me is looking at the foundational skills. I think that because we are not focusing enough on foundational skills and teaching how to read, particularly around the phonemic awareness and the phonics, is why we're seeing so many gaps as kids are going on. That and some of the other things you've heard about this evening that I'm in agreement with many of them. Next slide. Lion King dress rehearsals. So they were able to go to dress rehearsals this past Saturday. They have another one tomorrow night if anybody wants to get a preview at Prospect Heights High School. And they're also having one on Saturday as their big performances next week. I plan to be at both nights because it's usually 2 different groups of students that participate and lead cast. And so I like to make sure that I honor both groups of students. I'm looking forward to this. Many of you don't know, but that bald-headed guy right over here, who's the music vocal teacher, I actually hired him when I was principal in Sheepshead Bay. He was one of my teachers who put on the first group of Lion King, and they got to perform that actually on Broadway on the stage where Aladdin goes through.
Mr. Mack?
Yeah, Mr. Mack, yes. Mr. Mack was one of my teachers when I was a principal.
Oh, really?
I hired him out of a charter school, believe it or not. So strong teachers, so you're going to see a lot of great performance. So anybody who's here, you're welcome to participate. You don't have to have a student in the show. You can come. Just we'll give you the email address. Actually, I'll share the email address after that you can email for tickets to go. We would love to see you and your families there. So district curriculum highlights. We looked at progress monitoring and formative assessment. We went to PS 131, PS 230, and MS 442. Obviously, because each of those schools have different programs. So I'm just gonna be quiet. It's about a 6-minute video. We can get through that. It's not coming up now?
No, it is. I have to get out of this.
Oh, okay.
Another screen.
While I'm doing that, I'll talk about the other slides that are coming up so that I can save us time while she needs to doing this, putting it on. Oh, we're ready. It's on mute though, Shanice.
Yes.
While she's doing that, the one of the slides is going to talk about the Lion King, letting you know that that's April 4th and 5th. And the April 4th is at 7 p.m. The April 5th, because it's a Saturday, is at 2 p.m. And that's at Prospect Heights High School. We also have the Math Reimagine, what's changed and how you can help as parents. And so I don't know if you all were able to participate. And last week we had an event where we had it at Brooklyn High School of the Arts, where we were showing a video reconnect around what math looks like now and what it was supposed to always be in order to develop conceptual understanding in mathematics. And so Jessie does a lot of work with this. Her child goes to a District 15 school as well. So she's gonna talk about this and the work that it takes around how to support students in mathematics. And then, of course, I have a town hall on April 22nd, and that's really around foundational skills that we're going to be talking about. And so, go ahead, play the video. Let's see. First, we'll have McCullis talking to school leaders around the work. That's Foundations kit, where students are actually practicing their phonics. Some other ways that we're using it, so these are tactile ways that we're getting kids to engage in it, as opposed to just it being a textbook in front of them, but more creative ways to getting kids engaged. This is a group of students that are mixed third graders in a class, so it's 4 different third grade classes, different kids coming in for getting support in the same skills. So not only they're meeting kids in their class, but kids in other classes across the grade. Just kind of give you a little context.
Well, exactly, on the word completion.
So this is an E&L class of a lot of beginner students where they were using visuals to help them understand the concepts that they were actually learning. And each station had a different level and had a student who was leading that work. Principal always starts off the morning with getting other principals engaged in what work they're doing at their school, so they have context. So all of these are connected to units they've been studying, so it's not just about learning the text, but also engaging in it in a meaningful way. You can see paraprofessionals are also involved in supporting students in their classrooms. That's a teacher working with a small group of students while other students were engaged in other activities. Kind of blurry, but the kids are also learning English and Spanish simultaneously. So in that particular class, we're seeing that students were engaged in the text in both languages. This is just the student performing for when all the principals got back together at her particular school. They did a special dance in kindergarten. And then the last piece is going to be IM, illustrative math. This is at 442. 442 has a lot of students who are also autistic in the NEST program. So you're going to see a mixture of all the classes that have that. And you won't actually necessarily know the difference. So in this particular class, students are actually engaged in a math activity, but they have to actually go and discover how to figure out to solve it with each other. Teachers actually taking notes, almost facilitating and letting kids lead the work in partnership. So they get to use the board and across the classroom to solve some special code that they had to solve using mathematical concepts. Small group projects around mathematics and project-based learning embedded. That's just a principle right there, just saying. So some of the programs that some of the schools are using allow the students to actually do their math, and the teacher is able to see on another computer as the kids are doing their math, and is able to record what kids are doing as they're doing it. So what happens is kids can't be off path, but they can also see where kids are getting confused and help figure out what the misconceptions are in the mathematics. This is the students using what they've applied in math within their science classes. That's principal notes. So just give you an idea of how we try to use the formative assessments as well as the progress monitoring to identify what kids' gaps are, and then we try to plan to address those particular gaps. In the month of May, our principals are going to be spending 2 full days on teams to figure out what their focus is going to be for the following year in alignment to what data they've collected. So just to let you know, it's not just one piece of data, it's multiple pieces of data. It's anecdotes from classroom teachers, it's students' portfolios, it's students' assessments that are doing to triangulate where are some of the gaps that we're kind of seeing and figuring out how do we plan to address those gaps in the future. And so that's kind of the work that we've been doing. I've already talked about some of the other updates, so a little bit about summer school. May 28th is the application closes in my school, so parents, if you're looking to apply for summer school, Summer Rising, please do so by March 28th. It closes on March 28th. On April 24th, the results and the wait list will be available in my school's account. May 8th is the deadline to accept the offer. So families will only have 3 days to accept. If they do not accept within the 3 days that they've been given the offer, they will be automatically moved to a wait list. Summer school starts July 2nd for K through 8, and July 4th, Summer Rising will be closed in the service of obviously Independence Day. August 8th will be the end of Summer Rising for middle school students, and August 15th will be the end of Summer Rising for elementary school students. That does not include ESY. Any information you need is right there for Summer Rising, and then on the next slide, these are our sites. I'm sorry that the screen is a little blurry, but you won't get that when you look at the PowerPoint. You will have access because the CEC always posts our PowerPoints. We're fortunate as a district, we've always been able to have all of our principals in charge and our site supervisors, which happen to be the assistant principals. There's a lot of districts that don't often get to fill these vacancies and end up getting people from other districts servicing their students. We always have the ability to have our students served by our teachers, our principals, and our APs. The posting just opened up for teachers to apply. We're confident that we'll have pretty much the same teachers that we have consistently, and we're going to continue to use NSSI, which is the National Summer School Institute curricula that we've been using consistently for the past 2.5 years, 3 years, excuse me, and now going to the 4th year of using the same curricula for summer school. These are the site affiliations of which schools are aligned to which actual sites for summer school. And then the next slide. I've already talked about the upcoming updates, but here's a Lion King. Please feel free to email Neil Singh, NSINGH10 at schools.nyc.gov if you'd like tickets. Next slide is April 8th, which is what I shared about math, 10 to 11, and we're working on having that evening one from 5 to 7 for families who need to, from 6 to 7, families who need the evening. Next slide. And then our town hall, community has asked for four town halls, so we've created 4 town halls, not to coincide with CEC meetings, to address CEC concerns, but also to address some of the other concerns that parents are having. And on the month of April, on Tuesday, April 22nd, we'll be talking more about the foundational literacy, and a district team member will be supporting that work around what that looks like for our district. We're also creating, and it's not done yet, but we're working on creating a parent guide to help share with you, for example, when a school tells you that a child struggling with phonemic segmentation fluency, that you actually know what that is, and then can actually see a video of what that looks like teaching it to your child. And so we're working on developing that for the district as a whole, for the parents in our district, so that you actually know when you get those reports from Acadians that say, my kid is struggling with this, and you're like, I don't know what that is, that we give you some information about it, but also some videos to show you how to learn that. And those eventually will be posted on the website as they come along. So we're working on that. It's probably gonna be like a year and a half project, because it's a lot of information to give. But the idea is that you would be able, as a parent, instead of going crazy on the internet looking for it, be able to go strictly to the district's website and say, oh, they said that my child needs support on phoneme segmentation fluency. Okay, let me click on that. And then when you click on that, you should be able to get the history of what that is and what it means. And then as a parent, if you wanted to, click on it to be able to see, what does that look like when the teacher teaches that? And so that's something that we're working on and developing as a district. And I think that's it. Questions? Yeah.
Thank you. Questions from anybody joining us in person?
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I haven't seen what the family letter said. My name is Jessica.
Which letter?
They said too. About LGBT.
Yes, go ahead.
So my name is Jessica. I'm a parent of a transgender child here in the District 15. I lead my family's, school family GSA. And I'm part of a large community of parents and caregivers here in the District 15, with gender expensive kids. Several of us are here in the room tonight, who are on Zoom. And I have a petition that we have written, in response to the letter from you and from the chiefs.
Okay.
And we're deeply concerned about the response, or rather the lack of a strong response from the New York City public school leadership to the recent federal attacks on LGBTQ+ students. I'm also here to support the resolution that the CEC will be talking about later tonight. But on January 29th, when President Trump signed his executive order targeting young children, it seemed to strip away all their rights, erase their existence from classrooms, and intimidate the educators into silence. We expected a swift and decisive response from our city's education leaders. Instead, it took nearly a month to hear from the chancellor and 2 months for you to release your letter. When they both did, they fell short. Your March 12th letter offered a broad diplomatic support, but it fails to name or condemn Trump's policies that threaten our children. It does not make clear that New York City public schools will not comply with these federal directives. It does not reassure families or educators that the district will stand firm in protecting our students no matter what is coming from Washington. New York City is a sanctuary city, yet these letters do not reflect that bold, unwavering commitment. Our children deserve more than just careful wording and vague reassurances. They need to hear directly and unequivocally that New York City public school rejects these attacks, will defy any attempt to enforce them, and will protect transgender and non-binary students without exception. I'm asking you and the Chancellor and all New York City public school leadership to make a clear and public stance against this order. Please issue a direct statement, not just affirming students in general terms, but explicitly rejecting these federal policies. Our children, our families, our educators deserve to know where you stand. I have a petition, as I mentioned before, from over 200 parents in the district asking for this that I'd like to show you.
Yeah, that'd be great. I will accept that. Just note that the policies that come out of New York City are led through our mayor's office and the directives that come from our leadership. I cannot supersede let me backtrack. I will not make a comment that passes beyond the bounds, but what I can say for me, as a superintendent of this district, we will protect all of our transgender children and all children that identify in whatever ways they identify. Those are the policies of New York City. Those have been the policies of New York City, the policies of New York State as a state that we live in. I will continue to honor and support and protect our students. So as a district superintendent who also identifies as being gay, and you all know this, and my deputy superintendent as well, We are committed to ensuring the safety and protection of the students across our district. So that's unequivocal, right? When we're making statements, I have to be very careful at what my language is because of the fact that we're not dealing with one student, we're dealing with a whole district of students. And so my letter is in alignment to the chancellor's letter, which is in alignment to the city's statement. And the reason why I had to wait to send that out is because as a district superintendent, which is different in New York City than it is outside of New York City, where in New York City, outside of New York City, the superintendent would put a statement out because they represent the whole district as the district body to the board. This is slightly different. And so I was waiting to see where the comments were, but you can rest assured from me directly, and I will accept the petition and look at it and share with senior leadership as well. I am committed to protecting our transgender students across this district and even outside of this district if necessary. But I know that New York City is committed to protecting the rights of all of our students across our district and the city.
Very much appreciate you actually saying the word transgender out loud, and then you had a link that used that word in it, because the fact that those were omitted from both of these letters, generally speaking, it's noticeable. And the fact that Mayor Adams is not saying anything about this is really scary. Well, not just in this district, but a large amount that are thinking about whether or not they need to leave, whether their children are actually safe here. And, you know, that's just a shame because that's not what New York City is all about.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a very progressive district. We have our diversity plan, which is not in alignment with what the federal government is speaking about now. We have the diversity of our students as well, which is not what the federal government is talking about. As I stated before, New York City policies and New York State policies protect all of the students that I just mentioned. We are a diverse district. We will continue to protect those rights of the students in our district.
Any other questions or comments from people here in person?
Thanks so much. And I really want to appreciate for me. And just to say, like, feel sympathetic to your position, and I think the number of the people I've talked to, whether it's administrators at the school or in various places, seem to feel sort of stuck in the middle, and by design, sort of looking up for guidance. I think that doesn't work well when there's a mayor who's allied himself with the Trump administration and is not going to stand up for our families. And I think it needs a lot of us at the level here, not only about the rhetoric, but about the actual policy. So when we see him abandoning, recently arrived immigrants, when we see him backpedaling on whether ICE can come to school and teachers feel uncomfortable, it isn't just about the statements, it's about our actual safety. And I think this is a time that calls all of us to be brave and to risk. And that is going to mean deviating additional protocol, and I understand. I'm saying that as someone that isn't in a position as public as you are, and I don't fully know what the consequences are, but I really, really hope that you and colleagues take those risks for us, and I think that's part of our job, part of the job of the petition and this conversation. Is not just to push, but to be clear, but to believe you, and I don't want to speak for other people, but I personally, that's the position I would like to take, is that it doesn't have to be adversarial, it can be like the wind at your back, and we are doing it more and more, and it's going to get less and less safe, so we'll still have some measure of protection and help add the friction and slow things down to keep us safer, so.
Yep.
Um,
I appreciate that.
we're here for you and you're proud.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I am here for you. I'm here for all the students across our district. I recognize, what a precarious situation that we are in, not only as a city, but more importantly, as District 15. Again, as I stated before, we are a district that has, pushed for the diversity plan. We're the district that continues to support our diversity plan. We're a district that on multiple occasions, including our January legislative breakfast, I made it very clear that we will continue to support our DEI initiatives across our district. As forcefully as I can be, I'm also stating very clearly that I support our transgender students, our LGBTQI+ students across this district. And I will continue to stand with that, regardless of what the consequences would be, including for me.
Last thing, or one more thing on the topic. I guess I'm just not understanding why you are so beholden, because I see a community of threatened children as their education would be hampered by knowing that there are people in power who don't believe that they exist. I can see a educational downside to that. It's one thing to decide not to say, I disagree with the federal executive order. I can see you not want to do that. But as an educator, these are bad for educational outcomes. Why don't we go out and say, belittling the existence of our fellow, community members is bad for education?
So my letter, and not the words you want, also state the same thing. From my perspective, the language that I used wasn't to be or shy away from being able to speak about the beliefs that all of our children exist, no matter what form they come, or no matter what form they take, right? My letter was very specific, and to some extent, the language that I used was intended so that you, as the parent, could read to what I said. And so from my perspective, I have said that, just not in the words you may deem are the words I should have used in that, but I have said that, which is why when you're bringing it to my attention now in terms of what your concerns were, I am very blatantly straightforward in saying, I am here to protect my transgender students, LGBTQI+ students. They are protected under New York City law. They're also protected under New York State law. And so I do not see that changing for any of us in New York City because it's who we are in New York City. Just my language may not have been exactly what parents may have expected to hear, but we live in a political society. And in part of that political society, I have to be measured at what my response is going to be. And my response at this point is what I put out in alignment to the chancellor's documentation as well. And it clearly talks about we are here for all of our students across our city. And so, but there was a need for me to be very specific. And I think that when the parent asked me the question, I was very clear that I am talking about also our transgender students, as well as any student that identifies in the way that they identify. Because again, in my letter, it talks about all students, no matter how they're here. That includes my migrant students who are also facing attacks as well. And so it's not just one group of students, it's all students that I'm talking about. And so it's not that I wasn't, it's not that I was afraid to take or make those actions, it's just that I have to make measured actions when I make statements. And I take that very seriously. I went through that letter at least more than a dozen times before I put out. And I second guessed on a number of occasions, just as me being as transparent as I can, that normally I don't share publicly like this. And then I went to legal counsel to make sure that certain language was in there. And I also ensured that there was certain language in there, which is why I connected it to certain documents so that we could see that when you click on that, this is what I'm talking about. So I had to be very measured at how the response comes out. And certainly I understand that in some cases, parents may not have liked that I haven't gone as far as they would have liked for me to go as it relates to the language used in my letter, but clearly know that the letter was standing for all of our students in New York City Public Schools, particularly in my district where I have a range of particular students. And publicly, I've already made the statement, I think now the 4th time, just to reiterate again, that I will continue to support and protect our LGBTQ plus students and any other student that identifies in any other way, whether they're migrant students, whether they're students with IEPs, whether they are students who come from different countries that may be being attacked. Regardless of what the situation is, we will continue to protect and make all of our children feel safe and part of our school community as a district.
I hear you loud and clear. In your decisions, in your political statement, as you called it.
No, I didn't call it a political statement.
In a political culture, the statement you made is leaving a lot of families, including children, scared. So you may have achieved one end of the balance. So if the letter in your summation, your opinion is not the appropriate avenue, take other actions. You help the communities that are scared and that don't feel like school is going to continue to be a safe place. Find ways to connect with those communities.
Yeah, I have been doing that. I have been going to certain communities to have those particular conversations. I've been welcoming to be invited to any community, any GSA group that would like for me to come. I am more than committed to participating in those GSA committees if necessary to actually make the families particularly feel comfortable. I'm going to remind you that June is the month of Pride Month. I will continue to have our district celebrate just like we celebrate every single month and showing what that looks like across our district. And I'm committed to meeting with any of the GSA groups that exist. I know you're part of one. I just provided funding to MS 839's GSA committee that we received funding from the DOE to disperse. We gave it to their full GSA committee that was dealing with a project that they wanted to work on. I'm fully committed to this, to ensuring that all of our students feel safe. So if there's any group that is aware, who is listening, who is a part of hearing from our CEC or any of our CEC members who have heard any students or any communities that are feeling a certain way that need me to reiterate that to them directly, I am more than happy and committed to being there to speak to those students and those communities.
Great, I'd love to have a town hall for the GSAs and districts.
Sure.
And I'd love to invite you to our rainbow run.
Yeah, absolutely. I will definitely be there. Yeah. We'll talk after, so.
Is there anybody joining us on Zoom who has a question or comment, Superintendent? Anybody on the Spanish line?
¿Alguien una pregunta en español? No, there's no question in Spanish. No.
Anybody on the Bangla line?
There is no question on Bangla line.
How about the Spanish line? Or sorry, the Mandarin line.
No questions on the Mandarin line.
Thank you. Monique, any questions or any comments? I know we're worried about time, so I just want to put something out there maybe for the next month.
Yeah.
With our upcoming mayoral election, there is a decent chance that we have a new mayor that would then bring a new superintendent, or sorry, a new chancellor, and a new team at Tweed. And as you were talking about all the curricular changes and supports and a huge shift that happened under the current administration and former Chancellor Banks. I'm just concerned that, as I've seen in education, when people come in charge and then they switch everything on.
I don't think that's gonna happen this time, Jonathan, and part of the reason why is because we're also receiving a lot of funding from private funders who are providing the support for the professional development that's been happening for schools. So the additional, for example, in our district, we use Bank Street for the IN, and we're using Teaching Matters for the ELA. And that's consistent, and we've already know that the donors have already provided for next year's professional learning as a support. So I don't see that changing because of all the resources that are being put in, not only from the public sector, but also from the private sector. Yeah.
Great. This is the answer.
Yeah.
Nancy?
But that's a good question.
No questions. Thank you. Yeah, always appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. Just to expand on, when you mentioned, and some of the concerns that I heard tonight. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it when I see more parents here. It's amazing to see the advocacy, especially in topics that we as a district are so fiercely passionate about. I think we do need to acknowledge the issue with mayoral control and how much the politics shifting just affects everybody at the ground level, and to put that passion into what really needs to be voiced out there is that the mayor should not be in charge of our education system here, and based on whatever political agenda he may have at a certain time. With that said, I also believe that it's important that we hold our leaders accountable, but not turn against each other where we see spaces that may benefit us working together as a group. So I totally support pushing this district to create more DI initiatives, to push our curriculum to have better books that show more diversity, to do the things in the ground level that we can do in education. And I think that we're all here as a CEC ready to jump on those initiatives and welcome those ideas. And I have seen our superintendent also being very open to listening to those ideas and help us through that. So thank you for being here. Please keep it up. Please keep on coming and bring more ideas on how we can help support your children.
Thank you for coming. I echo your sentiments. We often sit here by ourselves. So it is nice to see actual live, living, breathing human beings. And I thank you for advocating for your children. I think our motto, or my style in District 15 is always collaboration. And I do think that you, in our superintendent, do have a collaborative person to work with on this topic. So please take advantage of that, because some districts do not have collaborative superintendents at all. And when Jonathan just suggested a new mayor and potentially new chancellor and God forbid new superintendent, I think I slapped my face, because God forbid. So do collaborate with our superintendent on the Rainbow Run, the town hall that you're suggesting, because we have privileges in this district that many others don't. So I look forward to attending both of those events when they do happen. Many of the things that I have suggested to Alvarez have come to fruition. She's the hardest working man in show business. So that's all I'll say about that.
I want to echo what Antonia said and Vanessa. I do think that I've only been on the CEC for a very short amount of time, but I have found that it's a very collaborative environment. Alvarez and his team are very collaborative and so open to ideas, to supporting the community. And so I think take advantage of that. Really ask for help, ask for what you want, and just keep bringing people and showing up like Vanessa said. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for being here. Also, one thing that is on my mind, and this is picking up on something that I think the second parent who spoke said, that things are going to get worse. And with that in mind, I mean, I know that school systems are not designed to be super nimble, fast-paced organizations for a reason. I think there are some protective elements of moving slowly. I do worry about how reactive, it feels like we collectively are often being, even though we know that things are going to keep escalating. I was listening into the first part of the city council education budget hearing, and they were starting to talk about the dismantling of the Department of Education at the federal level, which we haven't even talked about tonight. One of the questions that was asked was whether there was a contingency plan in place for what would happen if those federal dollars went away, and there wasn't. And I understand that all of this is very new, but that's not a problem for us to solve here. But the broader question of like, we know that these things are going to be coming to pass, and so how can we look ahead and be ready for them before they come, rather than having to wait a month or 2 months for a statement to come out when that anxiety is so pressing. So I don't know. I mean, I think that the ideas for town halls are great. We've got another town hall coming up already that's on the calendar. But I would also love to hear ideas from you about how we as the CEC can be in partnership to help make things a little less grim. It's because it's really rough.
Yeah, it's difficult when we have a federal government that doesn't seem to understand that the United States is made up of a large group of people, and the Constitution talks about we the people, all the people, right? And so it's difficult to hear that. We're sanctuary city, right? And we know that. And there are laws that New York City ordinance has that can't easily be so changed. And so the federal government can say a lot of things that they want, but at the end of the day, there are policies that local municipalities can actually do. I think that with the entire ICE thing, and I'm not going to get into the politics behind all of that, but what we do recognize is that when the federal government changes the laws to be able to do certain things, the local municipalities have to decide how far to go with some of the things. I know that there's been a lot of news, for example, around a lot of ideas of what people believe can and cannot happen in terms of when they go to our schools. It's been reiterated to us. You're going to keep hearing a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they still have to go through the same policies and systems that everybody else does to go into our schools. But there was a lot of back and forth here and there, and everyone hearing a comment and using that to create even further hysteria. And I see where that becomes the issue. I guess the bigger question is, how do you find ways to communicate information sooner? I'm not in a disagreement with you. I've been working on finding ways to be able to get the communication out sooner. It does take longer for a lot of reasons. There are a lot of other levels that we have to wait on before we can actually do anything, because we're beholden to those that we put in power. And that's the reality of that. We have put people in power to make decisions, and we have to wait for those decisions to be made in order for us at the local level, particularly me, at the superintendent level, to make decisions. And it does get frustrating. It gets frustrating because I'm really one of those people who want to be able to respond as quickly as possible. And to hear that it's taken me 2 months to respond is not something that is typical of me as a person in general. And so I hear you and I understand where the frustration comes. But to your point, Katina, this comes because there's a lot of implications for every and anything we do. We are the largest school system in the United States and probably in the world as it relates to a municipality. That's what New York City Public Schools is technically one district. The superintendent, or if you will, the chancellor currently is Melissa Aviles Ramos. She runs all of New York City public schools. We are considered a community school district under her one district of New York City public schools. And the reason why it was designed that way is because we're unique as a system in New York City that we're so massively large. I think the second highest, largest public school system is Los Angeles. And they are by like a third of what we have as a system. And then the third largest is Miami-Dade County, right? And so, or Houston, could be one of the two, I can't remember which one. Don't quote me on that. But again, it is increasingly frustrating. I'm trying to work through it. I myself am LGBTQ. It is extremely frustrating for me as a superintendent not to be able to directly do what the community expects me to do, but rather indirectly. Not necessarily trying to be indirect, but really trying to make sure that I encompass everything and everyone. And the implications of my letter, I know may not go as far for some, and then on the other side may not have gone as far as blocking information. So like there's always a divide and push. But for me as a superintendent, that's why I made it very clear in my language to you all here who are sitting here with me tonight. I'm making it very clear. I'm here to support you. We will continue to protect our kids. As a matter of fact, I will go as far as saying New York City is probably the best place for children to go to school as it relates to being in these particular communities in the LGBTQ++, because of the fact that I know that there is no other city in this country that will protect and defend fiercely the students that go to school, particularly the LGBTQ community, as New York City will. Regardless of who's in charge or not, I can tell you that we have policies, there are laws, there's city statute, there are state statutes, and then there are federal laws. And while we're not playing by the rules on the federal law level, as we all hear and see and feel, I can assure you that New York State has already made it clear. All of our DEI initiatives are going to continue to go forward. All the other initiatives that we have in New York City and New York State will continue to go forward. GSA is not going to stop because there's someone in the federal government that's saying, we don't want this to happen. We're going to continue to do those initiatives. We continue to do those initiatives now. I have already enlisted in a few of the initiatives going forward. So those are not going to stop in District 15. They're just not. I'm telling you, they're not. I'm the superintendent who will make sure that these programs continue. Literally, I just funded middle school 839. I don't know, it was like $2,300, $2,400, $2,500, literally 3 weeks ago, to make sure that the GSA program had the funding that they had so that they can continue to do the work that they were doing in their GSA group as one school. And we will continue to do that. And so I'm telling you out loud, I keep saying it because I want you to be clear that I am going to make sure that I do everything in my power to protect our students.
I feel much better in District 15 than I do for my friends in District 2. Because I go to those meetings and I see what's happening there, and I have many friends and families there.
Yeah.
And it's appalling what's happening in District 2. And that doesn't make me feel like New York City is District 2. Like that council is able to do that.
I can tell you, and it's no disrespect to the council there or here doesn't necessarily have the power to prevent GSA programs and the initiatives that we have as a city to go forward in terms of DEI or any inclusive programs that we have in New York City Public Schools. They may think that they have the power to do that. They do not. What they have the power is to make the suggestions and give advice and guide and provide support. But what I will say is this. This is me. I cannot speak for anyone else as a superintendent. As a superintendent, my guidance also comes from the members that you have here. They dedicate countless hours. I can't tell you how many hours they put in to visiting schools, talking to school communities, engaging in the community, engaging with people that are not in the school communities, taking emails and phone calls from all of you and several parents who may be frustrated or happy or upset about any one particular thing about their own child or about the school system or about their individual school. They spend countless hours doing this. I can tell you, I know. And one of the things that I would always do is work in partnership with whoever is on CEC to figure out how we move initiatives forward. We don't always agree on the direction of how to do that, right? Because there are implications for the decisions that I make publicly. But what I can tell you is that we will always come to some form of conclusion, some form of collaboration, some form of compromise that I would push myself always to the edge. And I always am that superintendent, if you don't know me very well, I'm that superintendent who's always sitting on the edge. Because I'm one comment away from probably not being in the seat sometimes. And that's as real as I can be about that. I'm being very honest with you and very vulnerable, I should say. And this is recorded, so obviously everyone's gonna hear it, and it'll probably be in the news tomorrow, and it's happened before, right? But that's okay for me. I want you to understand that as a superintendent, that's okay. I will draw the line sometimes where I might agree to disagree, or I might agree with you, but not put it in the language you may want it to be in, but I promise you, I have your back. And so, not worrying about other superintendencies, I'm only the superintendent of District 15, I am not the chancellor, so therefore I don't have to worry about every single district across the city. I only have to worry about District 15 right now. And as a superintendent, I am committed, fully committed to supporting and being at any of the events that you want me to show up at, to show students that I'm with them and I support them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So another parent comment.
Yeah, I was just considering you brought up, New York City being the best place for my daughter's gender. I moved here from Florida. Because PS39 had on their school website a parent search gender kids group. And my husband and I were like, where do we go? Because she cannot go to school here, and we moved here. And then to hear about District 2, it's like, this is following me.
Right.
I think right now, for myself, I totally appreciate everything that you said. I'm trying to figure out who the real ones are. Like when things get tough, who is gonna be like, I know what's right, I'm not doing it's basically just, and I hear that from you. I think that's just why, like, that's the job that we're doing. Who is gonna be there? I wanna figure that out. So I just want to say thank you.
And I will say this again, and I've reiterated 1,000 times. At the end of the day, I am LGBTQ. Okay? I am. My spouse just retired from the military. You hear me? Military, right? I am here with you. So I'm in the same fight you're in. I promise you I am. My language may not sound the same for a lot of reasons, and I can eventually talk to you over coffee when I'm not being recorded about the reasons. But I am here with you 1,000%. And just like what you just shared about Florida, there are districts across states that in one town, it will be fine, and the next town it's not. Even though New York City is one public school, which is why I heard the chancellor make the statement she made, she has to be careful and measured about the statement she makes, and I understand that people want her to go to the next step. But I think that her language was very clear, that we are a city that will protect all of its children, regardless of what you come, whether it's religion, whether it's sexuality, whether it's whatever it is. This is the city where we're going to protect you. And it is. And I firmly do believe that until I don't believe it, but I do believe it. Yeah.
I'm sorry to, so long. I did want to contribute one thing, like on theme of language, not directly.
Yes, please.
Your letter, and I so appreciate your vulnerability. What made me thinking about, like her letter or anything. My sense, and it's a guess, but it's an informed guess, is that trans kids in letters because then serves with inflammatory, it serves low stuff, and it's opposition, etc. And I think like my biggest point is personally, if someone was a non-binary kid, loves pencils and love, like we don't want to be centered either. Well, we didn't start the conversation.
Right.
The right has repeatedly, explicitly targeted trans and non-binary kids by name in this executive order. I don't know if y'all have to get the resolution, but the executive order is horrific.
Yeah.
And explicit. And so when it's met with language that is trying to be sort of like big and neutral, it feels mismatched. it feels like they came out by name, but then we're supposed to read between the lines of the response, and I hope that we are part of everyone that someone's talking about. And I think that, at least for me, that's where the reaction comes from. It's like, they get to come down, but the people who are defending us try not to say our name because it might stir things up. And
Yeah, I hear that. I'm hearing that. I hear that. Let's,
And then I think also not saying the word trans can also play into an argument that trans people don't exist.
right, I hear that. I clearly hear what you're saying. Thank you for bringing that clearly to me in the way that you're bringing it to me. That was not certainly my intent. So I hear that very clearly. Let me go back and see what I can do. But I have said it vocally. I'm being very clear with you now. We're going to protect our transgender children and all those children that are being attacked by whatever executive orders exist.
So I might have to do that, yeah, you're a parliamentarian. There's a resolution directly related to.
Yes.
Dangerously close to.
Yes. Yes. So let's, if you don't mind, we're gonna run with comments.
We greatly appreciate.
Yes, and I just want to point you to the Dignity for All Students Act, which protects all students in New York State. So that might be something that gives you some peace of mind.
I don't want to get off the subject, but you can continue to talk about this, but District 2, just keep showing up.
Yeah,
Just keep showing up, just keep showing up.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to District 13's resolution in opposition to the executive orders. I think it's officially entitled Opposition to Radical Indoctrination Executive Orders. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, resolution of the flag, which would be CEC 15, in opposition to President Donald Trump's executive order ending so-called radical indoctrination and in support of culturally responsive and sustainable education and gender affirming schools. Whereas public education in the United States has a constitutional obligation to provide an inclusive and equitable learning environment for all students, regardless of race, gender, or background, and whereas the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution ensures that all children are treated fairly and equitably in public education, whereas Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in any program receiving federal financial assistance, including public schools, whereas Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits discrimination based on sex, including protections for LGBTQ+ students in educational institutions receiving federal funding, and whereas President Donald Trump's executive order purporting to end so-called radical indoctrination in schools is a direct attack on the ability of educators to teach accurate, inclusive, and historically grounded curricula that reflect the diversity and lived experiences of all students, whereas such an order seeks to suppress discussions about systemic racism, historical injustices, gender identity, and the lived experiences of marginalized communities in direct violation of students' civil rights and their right to a truthful and inclusive education, whereas the New York State Education Department, NYSED, has issued guidance promoting culturally responsive, sustaining education, CRSE, a framework to advance equity, affirming student identities, and support academic excellence for all students, particularly those from historically underrepresented communities. And whereas NYSD has also affirmed the rights of transgender, non-binary, and gender expansive, I don't know what that 7 is, I'll have to look at expansive students in New York public schools, ensuring their ability to access facilities, programs, and an educational environment that affirms their identities. Whereas New York City public schools have been implementing culturally responsive and gender affirming education since 2019 as defined by the Panel for Education Policy approval of the definition for CRSE in New York City public schools, with students reporting that such efforts make them feel seen, valued, and lead to improved educational outcomes. Whereas New York City has made significant financial investments in evidence-driven initiatives such as Black Studies, the Hidden Voices curriculum, the LGBTQ+ curriculum, and other culturally responsive sustaining education programs, reinforcing its commitment to an inclusive, equitable TTC instruction. Whereas studies have demonstrated that culturally responsive and gender affirming curricula improve student outcomes, increase engagement, and foster safer and more supportive school environments for all children, particularly students of color and LGBTQ youth. Whereas the suppression of discussions about race, gender identity, and systemic inequities harms all students by failing to prepare them for participation in a diverse and democratic society. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the CEC 15 strongly opposes President Donald Trump's executive order and any federal efforts to restrict truthful, inclusive, and equitable education in our schools. Be it further resolved that CEC 15 reaffirms its commitment to providing culturally responsive and gender affirming education in accordance with the New York State Education Department's guidance and the legal rights of students under federal and state law. Be it further resolved that CEC 15 call on New York City public schools to similarly strongly oppose President Donald Trump's executive order. Be it further resolved that New York City public schools direct all schools under its jurisdiction to continue implementing curriculum and instructional practices that affirm the identities of students, foster critical thinking, and ensure that all children, regardless of race, gender, identity, or background, have access to an education that respects their experiences. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to the New York State Education Department, the New York City Department of Education, the Office for Civil Rights at the U.S. Department of Education, the Governor of New York, and other relevant stakeholders in the fight for inclusive and equitable education. All right, the only question I have, and I'm gonna sound ignorant, but what does TTC stand for?
Oh, here, I looked it up. It commonly stands for trying to conceive. So that's has here.
Does anybody know what TTC stands for?
Is it TTC instruction?
Oh, wait,
Yes,
teacher
TTC.
training.
Teacher Training Center.
Probably not.
Of course.
Commitment to an inclusive and equitable, to inclusive and equitable teacher training course.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's probably, yeah.
Instruction.
Well, it's probably like parent, like teacher development or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's teacher training.
Yeah.
Teacher training center. Teacher training center.
And then I found that -7.
What was the
Gender
minus?
expansive, it's an umbrella term for those who do not follow gender stereotypes or who expand ideas of gender expression or gender identity.
Oh, -7, so it should be and -7. That period should be removed? Is that correct?
I don't, there's no period on this.
So it should be transgender, non-binary, and -7 hyphen gender.
I think it just be gender.
Because I think that 7 must be from a footnote or something.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything like.
Outside of traditional gender norms, encompassing wide range of identities beyond the binary and male female.
Okay,
And I just changed implementing curriculum to curricula.
yeah. And there was an errant S after direct also. Implementing.
Do you mind if I go to questions, comments?
Yes, good question.
Okay, any questions or comments in the audience about this resolution?
Anyone against?
Right?
Okay, awesome.
We've been here since 6:30.
Any questions or comments on Zoom? Anybody on any of the transportation line? So really fast from CEC, questions or comments?
No.
Nothing for me,
No.
nothing, okay. I move to vote on this resolution.
I'm going to, okay, so the motion comes from Jonathan.
Second.
The second comes from Leslie.
Vanessa.
Whatever.
Councilmember Antonio Ferraro,
Yes, I vote in favor of this District 13 resolution.
Councilmember Leslie King,
I vote yes.
Councilmember Vanessa Gonzalez Roca.
Yes.
Councilmember Nancy Cruz, absolutely, yes. Councilmember Christina Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Jonathan Davis.
Yes.
Councilmember, let's see, Kwame.
Yeah.
All right, with that, we can. Thank you guys for staying with us until the bitter end. We now have, we do have general public comment period that we have to do.
Yes. Anybody have general comments or questions?
You guys doing amazing. You guys, thank you.
Okay, on Zoom, any general comments or questions? Any of the interpretation lines, any comments or questions?
I didn't hear any questions on the Spanish line.
No questions on the Mandarin.
No question on the Bengali line as well.
No hay preguntas tampoco en la línea mandarín o bengalí.
Okay, then I'm gonna close the meeting at 9:44.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.